a playlist original.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster Presents Deep Dives with Owen and Gaius, episode 10. Wow.
Episode 10. We
Yeah.
have reached the X factor.
A mini
in
a mini
Latin.
a mini milestone for the spinoff, the first 10 episodes.
Yes.
I think we can actually
Hey.
finally do the your 5 versus my 5 thing, like the poll to see
Yeah,
who had
We
the
can.
better. Yeah, we could finally do that. There's so many good films mixed into each one of ours. I honestly don't know who's gonna claim that at all. But
Who's gonna come out on top? I mean, I'm wondering to think who too also is gonna take into effect not just the movies, but also like this specific episode
conversation.
itself.
Yeah,
is the
that's true.
conversation we had about that movie better than necessarily the movie? Maybe. I'll take it too. I think your pick for Mr. Brooks was top notch because it sparked one of the best conversations we've had in a while.
Yeah.
And so I would choose your pick over Tucker and Dale, something like that.
Okay. And you know what's funny is I would be like Tucker and Dale because it shined a light on a movie that no one, like a lot of people either forgot about or don't even know. And then we found out too with that one is like the people that do know it really like it, and we're happy that we showcased it. And honestly too, last week's pick, someone sent us a message basically saying, and I don't have it in front of me, but I got the gist of it. They were like, even though Prometheus is technically the biggest movie we've picked, budget wise, I guess scope, they were like, you still picked an underrated movie, so it's still on brand for what the show is. Yeah. They were like, I still think Prometheus is pretty underrated in the whole alien canon, basically. So we still
we're still killing it. We're still killing it.
And the episode did really well, and it wasn't that you picked one that trended, but I will say that it jumped up 9 spots on Good Pods on Alien Day, which was pretty good that we had that episode running.
Did I make it for Alien Day? No, Alien Day was a thing, but I guess I picked a good one.
I mentioned that to Jackson yesterday. I was like, I don't think he knows anything about Alien Day, whatsoever.
No, but I picked it for Alien Day.
But yeah, it worked out, and it was another solid performing episode. So thank you guys again for all the continued support across all our platforms, but especially Good Pods, because it is a showcase for indie podcasts and indie podcasters. And not that I still use Apple and stuff, but I've been actually listening to our show on Good Pods more and listening to other people's shows on Good Pods, especially because you can actually tell when you listen to a show, their show pops up on your feed for other people to see. So maybe someone going through your whole feed of stuff will see a new show that they want to listen to and follow. So that's the good thing about Good Pods.
Yeah.
You could easily share.
I've actually been listening to it on Good Pods as well. And I think the interface is actually been really good. When you listen to a song on Spotify or something and you kind of want to know more about that artist.
Yeah.
You kind of have to hit 2 or 3 different buttons to see kind of where that person is or something like that. Yeah. For Good Pods, you immediately just in that page while you're listening to the episode, you can just click on Back to the Blockbuster and see exactly everything we've done. So it's a really well put together platform, and I think it's how I continue to listen to it now. Spotify, take a back seat because Good Pods is starting to be
what's up.
It's my number one choice now, man.
Yeah, and just to give everyone an update. When I was last week, when I looked at one point on the top 100 shows, any category, we peaked at number 8. That was a new peak for us. We're at 14 right now, but everyone puts out new episodes and stuff every week, so everyone's bound to flip flop. But top 100 shows, number 8 was our biggest showing ever so far, which is good for any category.
Congrats to us.
And today we are still number 1 on film reviews and number 1 on TV and film. And 3 of our episodes are in the top 100 episodes, so congrats to us, and thank you guys for listening on that platform. It's really cool, and it's cool to see where your episodes I've been looking at that list a lot, where they start, where they debut on the list. The Sandlot one, I think I looked at a couple of weeks ago when it said it debuted at 40 out of how many shows, and that was just the start, and then you just kind of watch it move up and gradually move up as high as it can go. Yeah, it's cool. We haven't really started at the bottom, which is really cool. There's a lot of interest out of the gate, which I think is kind of nice.
Dude, I'll tell you this. Remember when we started this deep dive and I said, hey, we're getting back to number 1.
Well,
we are. And
we did.
hey, now we're here, but it's all about the fact that I think that we're bringing relevant content that I think people actually want to listen to. And so
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with we're trying to get to the top of the ratings just for ratings' sake.
No,
It
no,
has
not at all. Not
nothing
at all.
to do with that.
It's nice to see. It's like an added
It's
an
it's
added
just
bonus.
rankings are
But
fun to see. Rankings are fun no matter what. You can always see kind of like where you sit. And I mean, that's why sports are ranked. That's why movies are ranked. That's why
yeah,
there's award shows. So it's like it is fun to see. It is fun to see like specific spots where we're doing well, and it just gives us more motivation to continue to create the stuff that we're creating. So
yeah, and
here we
honestly, and
are.
also surrounded by other podcasts that like I personally listen to and like kind of look up to the people that have been doing it. Like we're right around there with
Oh my god.
Antonio from like the Cult Worthy podcast, the So Wizard podcast, who has never
So
taken a
Wizard
break,
podcast is
and 450
that's my peak right there. Is the So Wizard podcast.
450 something episodes with no break since they've started. So
God,
that is crazy. Just
we
to
should
be like,
get them on for we should get them on
we
for
really should, like any episode really. Like they're,
yeah,
I mean, I remember we had Jake on like a long time ago when we did the 25th
a long
anniversary
time
for
ago.
Scream. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be good. I mean, it's to be surrounded around that group of people because like those were some of the first people I actually interacted with on Twitter and everything when we started it. And some of them were the ones that
I
invited
would
me to
love
the
to see
different groups.
Antonio again. I would love to
Yeah.
see Antonio again from the his podcast. I'd love to see Jake from So Wizard. I mean, they're just consistently doing great things, and it's literally we're trying to emulate. And
Yeah.
yeah, just like we would love to see them on here again, and maybe I mean we've only done 10. That's the only
I
downside
know.
about this is that every other week we're like, we should have this person on. We should have this person on.
And it
but
still
we
feels too
wanna
new.
kinda we want to keep the integrity of the show, but we're like,
Yeah.
we want people to join us. So
I know, like
we're
I
looking
know
forward
we want
to hopefully
I know we
doing
want
that.
Jackson on, and I mean that would make sense for him to be on. And I was actually thinking about it. I was like, hey, do we let him jump on one of our deep dives, like if one something you pick or I pick, or do we let him pick it for us because he's a guest?
Ooh, a
Like
Jackson deep dive.
yeah, like is that how we go about bringing him on for an episode, or we just
I
like
like that idea actually a lot.
might be the best thing for us to do? He really wants to do it. You know, he gets like a taste of it by doing the anniversary episodes because those are all just focused
Yeah.
on one movie, and he really
And
likes
I
doing
can
that.
tell even just from listening to it, I can tell he loves it. I can like the
Yeah.
Spring Breakers episode, which is one of our most popular shows recently.
Yeah.
I can just, I mean, that I can even just tell he was super into to explaining that. So I think that if we have Jackson on, it should be a Jackson specific. He picks the movie, and then we deep dive that.
All right. Well, you heard it here because you're going to listen to Jackson. He's actually really excited about this episode. I told him what we were covering, and he was like, "That's a good one for people to like, get familiar with again." Because I feel like it isn't as popular as it should be. And when we talk about it, I agree with him that still good, still very good, but it seems like it's not discussed with like this director's other like big, more expansive
Discography,
Yeah.
filmography,
Filmography, yeah. So you know what? Normally we don't talk news on this show, but I wanted to update you guys on a little bit about the writer's strike because we brought it up last week on the main show, and we said we would give you an update on if they decided to strike or not. And by the time we recorded yesterday's episode, they hadn't made a decision yet officially, but as soon as we logged off, they made the decision to officially strike at 12:01 a.m. on Tuesday. That's today, the day that we're recording this particular episode. And no one really wants, I mean, everyone is support of the writers and getting fair compensation and getting what they deserve from studios and streamers and networks. But no one really wants this because it's a huge detriment to the industry to not have things in production and not have people writing actively for projects that are in production. It's been 15 years since we had our last one. I can remember the 2007, 2008 one. It was 100 days. Not the longest one, though. The longest one was in 1988.
That's
100.
Regardless, that's the long time.
So long fucking time. The 1988 was the longest, I think, at 144. And honestly, dude, if you were to go back and watch, this is like TV specific. If you go back and watch Friday Night Lights, Prison Break, Lost, Heroes, and go to those seasons when the writer's strike happened, you can tell in the quality where the writer's strike occurred, because everyone was trying to rush like stuff out before the strike. Yeah, like
down.
Because they want, it goes down, and you can tell because like they want to get content out there in time to produce it. Because like once the strike happens, it's like pencils down. You can no longer write. You can't negotiate deals. You can't do anything. So, and fans of those shows know, you can tell specifically when those shows like start to dip, and then they get a little better once the strike is over. But it's not going to be good for the industry at all. And to kind of give you a little bit about what this kind of is, the WGA basically in their the crux of what they're saying is that in this kind of streaming era, the like new era of like viewing things now, because with like network TV you can have like syndication deals, and then that's how you got a lot of like residuals and stuff like that, DVD sales, different ways for writers to make money. Because of the way things are now, and there's less emphasis on, and this is like talking specifically about television, but this is a big part of it, and the streaming part goes into movies as well. There aren't a lot of fair deals when it comes to compensation on residuals when it comes to streaming, because the studios and networks and streaming platforms are saying, well, there's no real, we are still, it's still a new business model, and we're still trying to figure out how much profit we're getting and how much and it's not. And that's what they keep pointing that out too, because what the Writers Guild is saying is, we can see how much you're generating as a network, as a streamer, as a studio, and we can see how much you're spending on content, like billions of dollars on content. Why can't they get a fair compensation for the work that they're providing? Because without them, as you can tell, when they go on strike, there's no product to be put out there at all. And they want their fair share of the pie, basically, and they feel like they're not getting it. And I completely agree with that. This gets brought up a lot with, you even hear this sometimes with like actors, with like the Screen Actors Guild, when it comes to a back end on streaming versus a back end on theatrical. It's like the money is just different. And I'm glad that you picked up on the fact that they might be trying to like fool them, be like, oh, this is a new business model, we don't really know what the gauge of success is.
There's a lot of excuses you can throw out there,
but it's a lot of bullshit.
Like, there's a lot of bullshit you can say. I mean, the main thing that I'm thinking about right here now is that you said the last one was in 2007, 2008. And I'm wondering now, and this is a question for you as well, is that as the entertainment industry continues to develop and continues to be dynamic in what is popular, what is the most popular form of content, and how people are ingesting this kind of stuff,
right?
Do you think that it's going to take a strike consistently every decade or so in order to kind of get this thing? Because I mean at this point it's kind of come down to the fact where it's like the entertainment industry is significantly skewed, where we see people making, we can also even get into the terms of like men versus women and how much they're getting paid, but it's like, I mean, this comes from like 0.5% of people making tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, and then the people who are actually creating the content and writing what's being successful making minimal, like if not nothing. And so like, do you think that this is going to be a consistent thing where, as we see the development of the industry, that we're just going to have to keep seeing a strike? I mean, at this point, like, they have to kind of put their foot down, and they say like, hey, I'm not okay being paid $50,000 a year to write the Jimmy Fallon show that's being so successful. Like, that makes no sense to me. And so like, what do you think about that? And what do you think is going to change after the strike? And do you think it's going to be as long?
Well, I would hope they would learn, and this wouldn't have to happen every 10 or 15, even 15 years. Like, my train of thought is like, you can already see the changing landscape when it comes to streaming and theatrical, and like whether people are watching TV live, all this stuff. Like, you see all that changing already. So it seems like the deals you should be making with writers should evolve with that change. And like, it seems like they're just still trying to be stuck in a period that was long before this one. And I'm sorry, I mean, I don't believe them when they say like, it feels like a brand new business model, and we don't really know how to gauge the level of financial success. Like, apparently you can, because you're pumping out all that money on content. You're spending money on it, and you're making money because like you can see how much a studio's making. And when Netflix and all these other companies have their quarterly calls, like with deadline and everything, they might report some losses, but they also report a lot of gains. So like there's money. You just don't want to give the writers what they feel like they deserve. And like one of the things that they said the survival of writing as a profession is at stake in this negotiation. And it says, driven in large part by the shift to streaming, writers are finding their work devalued in every part of the business. While company profits have remained high and spending on content has grown, writers are falling completely behind. The company have used the transition to streaming to cut writer pay and separate writing from production, worsening working conditions for series writers at all levels.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll put it into perspective like this. It's like when I think of like the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of the writer strike is something like Saturday Night Live, where you have these successful people that started as writers.
Right.
But at the end of the day, did they become famous because they were writers, or did they become famous because they became on-screen attraction? Like Tina Fey, Seth Meyers, John Mulaney, like all of these creators who in and of itself, like they were writers for SNL to start, but if they had not become visual actors and presenters and entertainers, would they have the same success as they do today? And would they be getting paid the same? So I think that like that's the way that I kind of think about it, where it's like you have these wildly successful people and wildly hilarious, especially in the comedy realm. Right. And probably the drama realm too. I mean, mostly talk shows where it's like Jimmy Fallon and goddamn James Corden, like they don't write fucking shit. Like they don't do anything.
I love that you keep bringing Jimmy Fallon up because like he got roasted today.
Yeah,
because of
like
this,
and that's why I kind of keep bringing it up.
Yeah, it's awful. Like don't show like it's cool to show support like if it's genuine. Like hey, I Jimmy Fallon, you're nothing without your writers. Probably it's probably a whole team that writes for you. And I love that the girl who actually isn't a writer, she is a senior photo coordinator on the Tonight Show. She went on Twitter and retweeted his comment to Variety about how he supports the writers, and she was like, and she just didn't type his name in, she added him so he gets the notification. So she was like, at Jimmy Fallon, you weren't even at the meeting today where they told us that like we weren't going to get paid after this week, and not only that we're not going to get paid after this week, but we're going to lose our health insurance after this week as long as the strike goes on. So the strike also doesn't affect just writers. So when there's nothing in production,
that's the most fucked up part about it.
Right. When there's nothing in production, that means there's no catering, there's no grips, there's nothing. Like they don't make any money because there's nothing in production right now.
Health insurance is the biggest part too. Like the perks. Like that's why people get jobs, so that they can have benefits.
Exactly.
And like, to someone who's creating the show that people love, to give Jimmy Fallon a script that people think is somewhat funny that he can fake laugh at.
Yeah.
like
yeah, I know.
That makes no sense to me. Why he's the one getting paid the big bucks. I mean, because he's the visual.
And they're feeding him the words. Yeah.
I mean, it comes back to the like radio killed the video star. It's like if you're a good looking and entertaining person, then you can make the big money. Whereas the person who's actually writing the content, you just get kind of shunned to the side, you know?
Yep. And that's how they kind of feel. And, this is a good example of why they think, they want to see more gains in compensation and residuals, and they want curbs on mini rooms. And mini rooms are where groups of writers work in advance of the production of a television series to break stories and write scripts. The Guild has argued that the producers are well able to compensate writers more fairly. If you want them to break early and have these like writer rooms where they're there before everyone else, getting all these stories out.
It's crucial,
right? And then you're gonna see why it's crucial, because if this doesn't get resolved soon, you're not gonna have a fall TV season, at least not when you expect to have it, because no one can write yet. Like the Abbott Elementary people, their writer's room was supposed to start today, and they're not going. So they're getting ready to, while the actors are on hiatus right now, they are supposed to write all the way up until like August when everyone comes back. And now you have all these scripts ready to like film, and then you're able to premiere in like September, like a normal fall premiere for a TV show. If they can't write for 100 days, if it lasts this long, then you're pushing all this stuff back. And of course, then no one's working as well too. I hope it doesn't last 100 days, but it seems like I was looking on Twitter, and like one guy says that he had some insider source that said that some studios or networks think they can ride this out until July. And I was like, that's fucked up, and they think it might even ride out until September, and that will really affect the TV landscape more than movies. I mean, movies will still be affected, and I can explain that in a little bit too, but they also said this too, like the entertainment segments of the industry's major companies, Netflix, Paramount, Warner Brothers, Discovery, Fox, Disney, and Comcast, NBC Universal, posted an average $29 billion in annual operating income between 2017 and 2021. They are just wondering, why can't that money be rationed out more fairly to the people?
What are those writers getting paid? I'm guessing those writers are making 50 grand a year.
That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. Unless you're like a top tier, I guess, maybe writer for like a TV show or for movies, like, you know, I guess I'm, you know, this is a better example.
What are you working? You're probably working what, 80 hours a week?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And they also want to establish some sort of policy on AI and authorship, especially if a writer's idea are used as the basis for AI generated work. And they also want to regulate.
That's actually a very, very interesting topic where it's like, hey, I have an IP that can be entered into Chat GPT. That's still technically my idea. Wow, that's fucking crazy to think about intellectual property rights.
Yeah, and they said the WGA's proposal to regulate use of the material produced using artificial intelligence or similar technologies ensures the companies can't use AI to undermine writers' working standards, including compensation, residuals, separated rights, and credits. Everything they want is fair. I mean, everything that they could possibly want is fair. Now, if you're wondering how this will
power.
Exactly. If you're wondering how this will affect your viewing habits, you're already seeing it with the late night shows. They've all gone dark as of today. They're not. They've already.
You like network TV? Get ready.
You're screwed. They've already pivoted to reruns. They already had guests lined up for the next 2 weeks because their guests are promoting their movies that are coming out. Now they won't be able to do that. So they are all dark. So Jimmy Kimmel Live, The Tonight Show, Colbert, all those are dark right now. The Daily Show, any other the weekly ones like Real Time with Bill Maher, also dark at the moment. Saturday Night Live also announced they're going dark as of today. They had like a special episode where Pete Davidson was supposed to host, but that is canceled now because they can't do it. If you're a fan of daytime TV, mainly soap operas, I know that's not a lot of our listeners, but you're lucky in the sense that soap operas film so far ahead that they have like 4 to 8 weeks of like what we're actually seeing on the screen. They're ahead.
Those people are working round the clock.
They're the clock, yeah.
Those people are working.
So in a perfect
non-stop, man.
In a perfect world, strike won't last that long and it won't really affect soap writing. But if it does,
like, we got 18 weeks of content here. Like, we're good.
But if it does go too long, then that will affect your daytime TV because you can't write. The last time that this happened for soaps, some of them use scab writers, and scab writers are writers that decide to cross the picket line and write anyway. And that doesn't really get you a lot of respect from the people in the guild. So, I mean, I totally understand that. How it affects movies, everything that's on the release schedule up until towards the end of the year is probably good. Now, if something released at the end of the year is finished, but they screen it and they want to like have a rewrite, they can't do that.
Or any AD.
It can't do anything at all. So it could affect some releases towards the end of the year. If it goes on too long, it could affect releases in early 2024 that have release dates already, but they were either in the middle of shooting or they haven't started shooting yet. So those release dates can get. I'll tell you that,
man. I think that this one feels it has the sense to me that it's such a sort of like, you know, when something kind of starts very, very gradually and it doesn't seem like it's a big deal until it really starts to pop off.
Right.
I have a sense that this is going to be a very serious negotiation. Like this is going to be a gritty and very real negotiation between networks and the guild, because I can see that like the guild and like their proposals, which are insanely and they're reasonable.
Yeah,
they're reasonable for what they should expect. But I think that what these studios and what everything else is expecting is that they can do it for cheaper, and they believe that they can, especially with the use of AI and the use of scab writers. So I can see this strike being significantly more impactful and longer, especially since it's been a decade and a half since the last one. I can see this one being very serious. And I think especially with like streaming services and like, I mean, it's going to come down to negotiation tactics where it's like, we need to see the release of viewership per show and how much these things are doing so that we can receive compensation for my writing. So it's like, there's going to be a whole lot of data that is going to need to be released that hasn't been released yet, that is going to be need to made public in order for these writers to get paid. So I can see this being, I mean, I just to throw it out there, this is going to be a long negotiation, and I would be surprised if it's not more than 100 days.
Yeah,
I can see it being more than 3 months. I'm thinking this is going to be a Christmas present for the guild when they get their actual comeuppance.
Yeah, I hate to agree with, in a perfect world I wanted to end sooner. That date that guy gave where he said July, but he said also September sounds more realistic.
It's gonna be a Christmas. It's gonna be a holidays.
And it's crazy that and you know what's even more crazy is Hollywood just went through a shutdown with COVID. They already dealt with this for well over a year, and now they have to deal with it again. Like, now that things have finally gotten back to normal and productions are back to normal and everything's copacetic as far as like getting content out there. Now we're back to where we were like 2020, where everything had to shut down again. And people already felt that kind of loss in the industry when that happened. Like, so many people lost major income from it. It didn't really affect like actors in that. I mean, not big actors and stuff like that.
Well, this
so
isn't
much
about actors. That's the
but
thing.
but it's all
it's
it's writers. And also with like a writer, you're getting paid per gig almost, unless you're like a staff writer. And that's what another thing that they said too. They were saying the company's behavior has created a gig economy inside a union workforce, and their immovable stance in this negotiation has betrayed a commitment to further devaluing the profession of writing, from their refusal to guarantee any level of weekly employment in episodic television, to the creation of a day rate in comedy variety, to their stonewalling on free work for screenwriters and on AI for all writers. They have closed the door on their labor force and opened the door to writing as an entirely freelance position. No such deal could ever be contemplated by this membership. Yeah, I mean, it seems like what they're saying is almost like they have turned it into like, I'm going to pay you per, rather than you being like a staff person on this like writing team. Yeah, it's
one, and then that takes into a debate like the benefits and everything too. So
yeah,
it's like if you're working freelance, like you're having to pay for all of the extra stuff, health insurance and stuff like that. So like that's a big thing for me. But at the end of the day, I mean, I can see this is going to be a ruthless negotiation. I really think it is.
I was trying to be so optimistic too. But listening to you, I'm like, I think it should be too. It should be a quick fix for sure.
I think it should be, because it comes down to the fact where it's like, when you really break down all of this content that we are enjoying and that we expect, you know what happens when we see a movie that we hate or we see a show that sucks? The writing's bad. The writing's bad.
First thing you say. Yeah.
So it's like, why the fuck wouldn't we pay our writers more to have them happy to make something that's better? And when they're getting paid, I mean, I'm not saying that writers should be making $200,000 a year. I'm not saying that. They're not surgeons. They're not saving lives. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like, they should be getting compensated for the same amount of stuff that they're creating. And if their show is making, I don't know, 100 million views, like, writers of Breaking Bad should be rich. They should be.
Yeah,
it's not Bryan Cranston. Like, Bryan Cranston, yes, he's the catalyst and he makes that thing work. But without the writers, his performance doesn't translate. So it comes down to the fact where, like, you need these people in order to create the content that people are dying to sit on the couch and watch. Yeah. So, I mean, like, they need to be compensated for this kind of stuff, and they need to be treated well I mean, I think that now it sounds like a Black Mirror episode where we're talking about are we really about to start to, like, diversify our writing portfolio into AI versus non-AI? Like, do you have to say, like, this was written by ChatGPT? Like, would you still enjoy it? Probably. But like, do you pay someone like that? Like, it's going to become an entirely different landscape of writing and also of compensation. So I really think this is going to be a very serious negotiation tactic, and also understanding of, like, I think the strike is starting with like 2 or 3 main points, but it's
Yeah.
going to bring up an insane amount of things that actually do matter that are going to take a lot more time to develop. And so
Yeah.
I can see this lasting for a while.
I can too. And like you said, I agree that yes, writers are not saving lives, they are not surgeons. But I will say this, if I'm writing something, if I'm writing your show or your movie and that generates a ton of revenue, I should be compensated fairly for what I contributed to
Agreed.
that generating the type of revenue. Like, for you to tote and brag about how like, oh, this was like our most viewed show of the week, or like we made so much money on this. And you see that a lot in the trades. Like there's a lot of bragging when stuff is successful. But if I'm sitting there like, all right, well, what did I really get for creating it? Like, I get the bragging rights of my names in the credits. Like I can show all my friends like written by so and so, and that is great. But I should also be given a fair amount of like what that revenue is. And I think that's what bothers them the most, is that there's all these like studio heads and like CEOs and stuff who are rich, who are telling them that like, oh, there's something really we can do for you, right now.
There's no wiggle room. Sorry.
Yeah,
the budget's capped out. Sorry, bro.
No, dude, no, we don't believe you. I'm not dumb. But yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be an ongoing thing, and I think it is going to be a long one. I would hope it wouldn't be. They definitely started the picket lines today. They were picketing outside of Paramount, Sony, Netflix offices as well. That's going to be going on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. But more power to them. I think I stand with what they want. It's not unreasonable to me, and hopefully
for everyone out there, I stand with writers. I'm there for them. I think their creative process and their ability to generate actually not just content, but the entire amount of content that we consume is paramount, and it's crucial to what I enjoy, and it partakes to everything that I sit down when I'm ready to watch something. And I want to I mean, we talk all the time about, was the dialogue good? How was the script? How was the writing? And so like how could I not care about this? So I want writers to be compensated well. I want them to be I want them to find this happy medium of like wanting to. The thing that strikes to me always kind of come to is like, after this, is there still some sort of like a little bit of anxiety or anger, like resentment afterwards, after the strike is over, where it's like, all right, it's like, all right, so like we gave in, so now do your fucking job. So
I wonder
like what happens after that? It's like, do you still have some resentment towards it, or like how does that kind of work? Because that's the hard part about unions, and we can get into all that kind of business stuff in a different podcast if you want to start some sort of union podcast. But at the end of the day, like I really hope that this negotiation comes down to them just being compensated well for it, especially with I do believe, I mean, we've talked countless times about why aren't these numbers being released about viewership and how much money it actually makes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it still doesn't make sense. So I hopefully that becomes public, and that will lead to the payment of these workers who are doing countless hours of work for these shows that we love. So that's what I hope.
Yeah, and a little transparency would go a long way, because I think it was last week where Apple TV was like, oh, like Ghosted was like our biggest like movie launch like ever. It's the movie with like Chris Evans and Ana de Armas, and I was like, all right, what does that mean though? Like you're not providing like hard numbers, and there's only like third party things that can actually get those numbers, but they don't even get the full amount. It can generate a certain amount of numbers depending on what kind of smart TV you have. So like you can boast about like how big the premiere was, but if there's no like hard numbers behind it, like what does that mean? I still don't know. I still to this day don't understand the
also is it like Spotify where like a view counts as 30 seconds of viewership? Like does a watch for them mean you turned it on for 10 minutes and then turned it off?
Yeah.
Like, does that count?
That really should count. I watched it for 30 seconds.
That should be a -1. That should be a -1. For
exactly. I didn't even finish.
It means like they hated it. They're like, I'm done with this. This is bad.
Well, I wanted to get a little bit of it out there because we brought it up last week, and we'll update you on the other show with Jackson as well if there's any development in it. I agree with Owen though. I feel like
you're bringing out my pop culture side now. Like this you're about to make me make an appearance on the regular show.
I know. Like, no, we gotta talk about this some more.
I need an update. So honestly, actually, if you guys are recording next Monday, I'd love to be a part of it to kind of continue the actors, the Writers Guild strike.
Because I think there's gonna be more of that stuff that comes out of it. I know there's a writer that actually was speaking on CNN about their Warner Brothers like CEO on CNN about how this person makes this amount of dollars a year, and all we want as writers is like just a little bit of that piece. It's not even like we're not asking for much. And it was just crazy, to have this guy be on CNN and like talking about a Warner Brothers CEO. There are a lot of people talking very publicly about the people that pay them and provide that they work for. But I also commend them for doing that because they can't stay quiet. They're striking for a reason. And it really does feel like this kind of like David versus Goliath, like the little guy versus like all these big companies that don't want to bend for them. And it's just really, it's bizarre to me that like people in these positions are, for lack of a better word, just feel selfish that you don't want to give any of these people like what they need to pump out the content that you want to
promote. We're generating a very tough question that is at the heart and center of capitalism. Which is why is the top making so much and the little people making not as much? So it's like, if we really want to change this, we got a long way to go. But I really do think that writers in general, and it's crazy to think that the people that are actually creating the content, writing the words that are being dictated, written, and spoken on certain shows are the ones that are being the least compensated, which is crazy to me, especially when like they're the ones who are basically making what the show is or not. So at the end of the day, in any other industry, if the person who was making the key decisions and making sure that those were the ones that people benefited from, in medical, the person with the scalpel, they make the most money. In entertainment, it's the person who writes the words. Shouldn't they be making the most money?
Yeah,
but
should be.
But who knows? I think that they deserve an equal share, if not the lion's share. But we'll see where it goes. And I wish that there was more that I could do to yell at Warner Brothers. If we haven't yelled at Warner Brothers enough, which is...
I also heard rumors swirling that Netflix was another one of these platforms that was being extremely unfair when it came to negotiating.
Well, I mean, Netflix. I'm not surprised. Shows that have been successful, and they're like, it's not good enough.
Then like, they lied. I will never forget that they said like, we've never canceled a show that was like successful, and I was like, really? I mean, I feel like you guys won't tell us what's successful. I mean, you do, but you don't. So how are we supposed to know if like you decide to cancel after one season didn't work? You don't provide numbers. You don't like tell us anything. At least with like the Nielsen ratings, I can see that only 2 million people are watching it, and like, all right, that's why I got canceled. Like,
okay, I will say though, like speaking of Netflix coming back and like kind of bringing it around to the show, like Black Mirror is coming out with a new season.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true.
I heard, which like hopefully they've written it by now, and you should be paid for the writing that you've done for the new Black Mirror episode.
I'm assuming that's all.
I think it's been filmed too. I think it's
on the can. Yeah, I think that's all on the can. Jackson was very concerned about House of the Dragon season 2. It will continue to film because all their scripts were done before strike. So Jackson, you will get your House of the Dragon, no delays. Because I guess that's not coming out till like next year anyway.
Jackson,
but nothing. If it was going to be affected by the strike, you're going to be waiting like even longer for that show to come back.
You're going to be waiting 3 fucking years, man.
I know. The last season of Cobra Kai had to stop writing because they were in their writers' room. So there are some.
We can push that.
There's some big. Hey, Cobra Kai's good, man. That's when you can probably tell like the age difference. And I'm like, Cobra Kai, the Karate Kid, grew up with that.
And I'm like,
whatever. All right. Well, moving on a little bit, before we get to what the show is actually about today, we are doing a little promo swap with another podcast called Bev's Video Kingdom, and they are a roundtable style podcast of 4 small town close friends who are movie lovers but not cinephiles. So kind of like more like your angle.
Sounds like
just
me.
A regular dude who likes movies. They release a new episode every Tuesday, and they have just gone over 100 episodes so far. So we are creeping up like right behind them. So nice. So 1 week they discuss a movie. They cover mostly mainstream movies from almost all genres, and then the next week they do a fancy style football draft of a movie related category. So, for example, like most memorable movie stoner, and their content is certainly. I like it too. Actually, that sounds fun. Their content is certainly adult with plenty of foul language and sexual references, but I will let you listen to what these guys have to offer for yourself. So without further ado, here is the Bev's Video Kingdom.
Bev's Video Kingdom.
Because the movies won't talk about themselves.
So Andy crawls through this river of shit. He comes out, visits a dozen banks, and no one's like, I'm a little concerned about the guy in the suit.
Right.
It smells like shit.
You mean the guy that literally washed himself in a river full of shit and is supposed to smell good?
Dude, that's completely the Mallrats stink palm, which takes like 3 or 4 days to wash.
Oh, last time I scratched my ass, it smelled like Bigfoot's dick for a week.
Bev's Video Kingdom. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
And we're back. What's up? So now that we've gone through the first part.
I mean, Bev's Video Kingdom sounds amazing. I think that, that's a show that I would love to listen to. I mean, I hate to say that, like, one of the things in my work that we like to say is shamelessly steal from people, but we're not going to shamelessly steal from there because they have a fantastic platform and what they're doing there. But at the same time, like, they are big movie files, even if they're not cinephiles or anything like that, but casual moviegoers, we love to hear that. And yeah, definitely tune into them. And we can't wait to talk about what we have to talk about too.
Wow! Can you imagine too?
Which is your pick, right?
It is my pick. Finally, I was thinking about when we were talking about the Bev's Video Kingdom. Can you imagine running a weekly show with 4 people every week? Like everyone has to be on. Like,
God.
I mean, I guess
it's just you and I, and still we were like, hey, can we have a day? Can we do this? Can we do that?
I know you're like, I can't. I haven't watched the movie yet. Like, can we do it tomorrow? Like, yeah. And then we try to get
so to all the viewers out there, I had a busy weekend, and I was like, hey, I need to watch this movie by Monday. And by Monday, I had a really busy work day. I was planning on watching it in my favorite thing to do is watch it right before the podcast, so it's fresh and easy in my mind.
Yeah.
And I didn't have time for it, so I unfortunately had to push it back a day so that it is fresh in my mind. I watched it last night, and now it is ready to go.
Well,
and
it's probably
Gaius, you wanna talk? I mean,
so it's finally my pick, and it's probably fitting that you watch it before bed. So hopefully you got some sleep, since that's like the main thing that's going on in this movie. But I picked Insomnia from 2002. It's a psychological thriller directed by Christopher Nolan and written by Hilary Swank. It's a remake of a 1997 Norwegian film of the same name. I have never seen it. I'm just going to put that out there already. And the whole time that I have loved this movie, I've wanted to seek it out. I know Stellan Skarsgård is in the role that Al Pacino plays in Insomnia, but I haven't seen it. So I can only look at this remake, judging it in that way. But the film stars Al Pacino, Robin Williams, Hilary Swank, Maura Tierney, Martin Donovan, Nicky, Katt, and Paul Dooley in supporting roles. And the film begins with 2 Los Angeles homicide detectives investigating a murder in Night Butte, Alaska. After the killer witnesses an accident done by one of the detectives, they create a plan for both parties to mutually avoid prosecution. This movie was released on May 24th, 2002. Grossed $113 million worldwide against a production budget of $46 million. Did receive wide critical praise. That is a pretty decent box office total, but I think we mentioned
113 is saying something. Like,
for an adult,
I had never seen this movie.
Summer. Yeah,
I had never heard of this movie before. I had never seen this movie before you told me about it, and 113 is impressive. Actually, I'll give it 114. 114, like that. That's a pretty significant box office.
Yeah, I think it's good for. This was released on May 24th, 2002. That was a crowded summer in general, but an adult thriller in the middle of the summer from a director who only had directed. He directed Memento and The Following before this. They were critically acclaimed, but they were not box office hits. This is officially Christopher Nolan's. This was his biggest movie as far as like the level of stars he was working with at the time. By the time he directed this, and I was
mentioning he's done nothing since. He's done nothing since.
Yeah, he fell off after 2002.
Fell off.
No, we were mentioning when we were revealing who the director was, in the grand filmography of Christopher Nolan, this is I think a great solid movie, but he's done after this. He went on to do big things, like really big movies, and I think that this one got lost in the shuffle because it is a bit smaller, but it does kind of have some signature Nolan visual stuff in it that you can maybe recognize if you like his work. But this is definitely
hear what you have to say about that, because I have some few points on that too.
Nice.
But like when I first, so I had never seen this movie before. So first of all, thank you for introducing me to.
I had to make up on the thriller front.
A new movie that I hadn't seen before, and I mean, this one definitely, like, when I first as I was watching it, it had, and it sounds weird to say, it felt like rookie Christopher Nolan. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay. So I felt like
Where
you felt like you were watching his like humble beginnings.
It felt like it really felt like he was finding his own in what he thought was going to be a good production. And I could also tell that there were some certain aspects of it where he probably wanted something different that I've seen in other movies that he would not, like, he'll go back to this movie and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I conceded on that, or something like that. But I mean, I thought that this movie was fantastic in the sense that it really had a great psychological draw. Al Pacino is Al Pacino.
He's Al Pacino.
I'll leave it at that.
I mean, he's good. He's very good, but he's very Al Pacino. There's a lot of yelling.
It's Al Pacino, man. It's Pacino. When you sign Al Pacino, you know what you're getting. I think Hilary Swank was a little underutilized. I think that she did a great job, but her role was more.
It's underwritten.
Not even secondary. It wasn't even secondary. It was a little bit more tertiary. And Robin Williams did a fantastic job, but there were some aspects of the movie that I felt were a little bit. It kind of came to the fact where I was having to kind of deal with all of these emotions and realizations and situations in time with the characters, which I thought was great. Where it's like, oh my God, like I think that was the most important thing, where you kind of come to a situation where you can't turn back from it. So you're either going to be all in and trying to hide the fact that you did something, or you're going to confess and come clean and face the consequences. So I mean, I had no qualms with the fact that Pacino was like, hey, I'm going to cover for myself because I've done it in the past. And I can easily cover for this, but the fact that there's one other person who has these things and this evidence on him to convict him for something that was technically, but maybe not, an accident.
Yeah, you go back and forth about that. Huh?
Yeah, and that's the thing. We'll get into the actual action scenes, but like, I really do think that it was a great story. It was a fantastic story that I love it being in not a place like you take an LA cop and put him out of his element. I love it. I love Alaska. I love that.
Where the sun doesn't set.
Dude, that was the best part of the movie, was the fact that it's, I mean, that's one of the main parts of it, is like he can't sleep. And I love how Robin Williams will say, like, hey, did you put your clock away yet?
But he was like, I love how he would mess with him.
I did was, because once you start looking at that clock, like, you're fucked.
Yeah.
But I will say, like it was a gripping movie. I was enthralled by the fact that Pacino kind of comes in there knowing that he is like the belle of the ball. Like, he's a veteran. He has this experience.
Everyone loves, like, particularly like Hilary Swank loves him.
With,
like Ellie, like, idolizes him.
She did a case study on you. And so, like, he kind of comes in as like this sort of shining star, but it eventually turns into like he's kind of hiding from everyone, and every single move he makes has to be under the cover of no one knows what I'm doing. So like, that was definitely a gripping and suspenseful experience within watching the movie. But it's funny because the first time I saw the guy who played Hal, the cop who did get shot, he's in Tenet, and I was like,
Oh, that's right. That is right.
I was like, Christopher Nolan coming back, doing his.
Christopher Nolan is a repeat offender
Dude,
sometimes when it comes to working with people.
He can't hire anyone he hasn't worked with before.
Yeah, that's true. That's really funny.
I thought I was gonna see a Michael Caine appearance. I really did, but
yeah, you know, it was too early. But yeah, that would have been cool. Yeah. If you go, if you go to work with Christopher Nolan, you work with him as much as you can, I guess. So I was actually going to pick a different movie. Actually, had another movie picked, but then I was on Twitter researching an article for work, and someone had posted a quote from a book called The Nolan Variations, and it's Christopher Nolan actually talks about Insomnia, and he says that he thinks it is considered his most underrated movie, and he said, I'm very proud of the film. I think of all my films, it's probably the most underrated. The reality is it's one of my most personal films in terms of what it was to make it. It was a very vivid time in my life. It was my first studio film. I was on location. It was the first time I worked with huge movie stars. That's not really for me to say, but every now and again, I meet a filmmaker that's actually the film that they're interested in and want to talk about. So I am very proud of the movie. So that's what made me pivot and pick this, because I was like, it is a really, I think, underrated effort. I mean, we're talking about a guy that doesn't have a bad movie in his filmography, so that's why it's weird to be like, oh, this one is considered his lesser, lesser movie.
You're talking from someone who loves Christopher Nolan, so I don't think he has a bad film in his filmography. But people don't like Tenet. People don't like a few other things from him. So
that's true.
I get it.
I mean, I think there's a misconception that I didn't like Tenet.
I don't understand. Like he is a revered filmmaker.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, he, or better or worse, I guess, he doesn't make movies like this anymore. It feels like he's very big in scope. I mean, after this, it's Batman Begins, and then it's The Prestige, I think, and then The Dark Knight, and I think there's Inception in between there, and like The Dark Knight, then The Dark Knight Rises, and then Interstellar, and then Dunkirk, and then Tenet, and now Oppenheimer's coming out in July. Like, so all of his movies have just gotten bigger in scope, that it is hard to remember that he used to make movies like this that were a lot smaller in their approach, but still pretty
smaller. Effective. I mean, meaning it made like 120 million.
Yeah, right. And then smaller in like, oh, you're working with Pacino and Robin Williams. Not small in that regard.
Yeah, seriously. And also Robin Williams. Like, I wonder how he was cast.
You know what? What's interesting about this year for Robin Williams? Robin Williams was in this movie in May of 2002, and then he was in 1 Hour Photo also in 2002. He played another kind of deranged, off the wall, crazy person. Did great in both movies, but they're very different approaches to how to play someone who is maybe on the cusp of being a serial killer. Because every time I watch this movie, I'm always like, is the Robin Williams character, Walter Finch, is he on the cusp of becoming one? Or, because you know how the way he describes what happened with Kay, and like just kind of filling everyone in, what reason why they're there, while Al Pacino goes to this small fishing town. 17-year-old girl named Kay Connell is found murdered, and Will Dormer, played by Al Pacino, and Hat Eckert, played by Martin Donovan, are sent to assist the local police with their investigation, and they're looking into who might have done it. And like you said, that Will Dormer is kind of considered a rock star amongst this group in the beginning, because he's big in LA, he's like solved all these cases. But what we learn is that Eternal Affairs is investigating one of his past cases, and this is a big bone of contention between him and Hap, who actually appeared to have had a relationship at one point, but this has kind of driven them apart, because you can tell that Hap wants to give them what they need and tell them what they want in order to make this kind of either have them go easier on them or make it go away. And Will doesn't want them to talk at all. And what I like about this setup is, I guess from the trailer and what this seems like, I'm glad that it's not like a good cop who's after this like serial killer who's just like toying with him. Like, Will Dormer is really flawed, and you shouldn't really like him all that much either. So you're watching two very like flawed individuals who are pretty much the same, almost, in different, like maybe small ways or not. But as far as like what they're trying to hide, in the case of like Will and then Robert Williams' character, they're both kind of like in the same lane of like they're both trying to hide things. And even though Al Pacino is a cop, he's certainly not a perfect one
or a good benefit of the law
at all. Now you can tell that he's a good investigator, because like all the things that he's trying to learn about Kay, and like learn about her friends. Like when they're that whole scene where they're like in her bedroom and he's like going through her stuff and he finds like the torn up picture and then
he's
like
a fantastic detective.
and he looks in the trash can and he sees like there's another half of that torn picture that, you know, is her friend. Like, well, you know, if this was her best friend, why did she rip this up and throw it in the trash? So like you kind of learn with all these like little like introduction scenes that he is a top-notch investigator because he looks at all the small details of a case.
He's respected because of his previous performance. Like you can tell that
Right.
his previous knowledge, his previous cases are well defined. Like he has a reason for being well respected.
Yes. Now the issue is that there's an issue of using questionable evidence in order to convict some of the people that he's investigated in past cases, which is why, you know, Internal Affairs was looking into him. So even though he is, you know, on the one hand, an expert in this level, at what he does, he's clearly gone through illegal corners in order to get convictions as well, on top of, you know, just actually being a brilliant detective and cop. And he wants to keep that hidden. So in the midst of all this too, since they're in Alaska and I like, there's that one scene where he's like basically telling them, all right, let's go do this. And they're like, oh, it's 10 o'clock. And he's like, okay.
Let's go to school.
I just go to school. They're like, it's
like
10
it's
o'clock.
10 at night. It's like
at night. So the sun does not set there. It's 24 hours of daylight. And what's interesting too is that you have Will Dormer, who is trying to deal with that change, like going from like LA. So you have this person who is from Los Angeles and you put them in Alaska where, you know, it's sun is out 24 hours a day. And so he has to deal with that, but he also has to deal with like the psychological ramification of his, you know, being told that like, hey, I'm going to testify against you in order to get immunity. So all this stuff is going to come out about you. So while he's trying to deal also with this new case that they're working in Alaska, there's these 3 different things that are like working against him as far as like psychologically. So by the time that we get to a moment where, you know, they've gone through all of Kay's stuff and they're trying to figure out a way to like lure her suspected killer out to where they're going to try to ambush him, you know, and there's that whole sequence and stuff where they get, you know, lost in the fog. And I know we kind of brought up like what ends up happening. So this is like the first big quote unquote action scene, like when that happens.
I mean, yeah.
Shot very well though. I thought Christopher Nolan did a really good job. Like you feel like I
thought it was shot very well. It felt very disorienting.
Yeah, you feel like you're lost in the fog with him, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, who we learn is Robin Williams later gets one shot off at one cop. He gets shot in the leg, and then Dormer goes to go look for him. And in this kind of fog, he sees a figure in the distance, and he has his one gun, and it's out of bullets. And then he has a backup 9mm, which will be important later. And he shoots who he assumes is, you know, the guy they suspect killing Kay, and it ends up not being him. It ends up being Katt, who was going to testify against him in order to get immunity.
And can I tell you that I knew that was going to happen? I mean, it was
you
so
saw that
early
coming.
on in the movie. I could see that coming easily.
Right. Did you? Now, I guess I can ask. I mean, I don't know if it's important to ask you now or later. I guess I can ask you now. Do you feel like it was an accident? Like this wasn't something that he did on purpose? Like, because I know they try to like throughout the movie, they want you to feel like, oh, like maybe he saw him and did do it. And I'm under the side of it was an accident. But I just want to see what you think.
Yeah, no, first of all, great question, because I mean, that is like one of the like at heart questions of the movie is what is Pacino's intent? And like what is Dormer actually really trying to do? Is he trying to save his own skin, or does he actually feel bad about the consequences that he's done? I mean, in terms of like the cases that the one that he is on trial for in Internal Affairs, like that kind of stuff, and then versus is he really going to do everything he can to save his own skin? So I understand that. I mean, that I think is one of the biggest questions of the movie. I think that any other actor would have done a very poor job giving me a hard time to decide. But Pacino, dude, he does an incredible job of making me not have any idea what his true emotion is. And coming from like, I mean, even Robin Williams and his character versus the other cops, they say it so well where it's like, I don't think you're thinking straight, man. You haven't slept. Yeah. That is the heart of the movie where it's like, no matter what, are these decisions that he's making, are they like intentional, or are they just the fact of being psychotic because he's been awake for 73 hours? Like who actually knows? But in terms of the question that you asked me, I think that he didn't. I don't think he intentionally shot him, but I think the second that he did, he was not only one, happy, two, relieved, but also like the second that it happened, he's like, this solves so many problems. So even though I didn't mean to do it, this is a good thing.
All right,
and that's why he covered it up. So that's why he didn't say, "Oh, it was an accident. I shot someone."
Yeah.
That's why he covered it up and was excited to continue that cover up and continue to make it be not his fault.
Well, what the movie does a good job of, there's a couple of moments before we get to this where Dormer's clearly mad at him. Like after he tells him that he's going to testify against him, you could tell their relationship in just a few scenes has changed already. So there's already this anger that's there. So it really does set up the fact like, all right, maybe he did do it on purpose. The way Al Pacino plays it when he discovers him, it seems like he's genuinely like, oh, because he takes off his tie, like he wants to like kind of like put something on the wound and like maybe stop the bleed and help him. Then, to Martin Donovan's credit, when he's dying, he was actually really good when he was like, you shot me, and he looked frightened, like he was like, no, you did this, like basically did this on purpose, and that is his dying like declaration, like I know you did this on purpose, and that's like the last thing he sees.
Makes it even harder when his wife asks him what were his last words, like did he say anything?
Yeah.
And his last words were like, I'm scared of you. You did this on purpose.
This on purpose.
Like,
get
away from me. How can he say that to the widow?
Yeah, it's true, right? It's true, right? But yeah, that's interesting that you think that. I mean, I guess because he has to cover it up because of what's going on with Internal Affairs, they're not going to believe that he shot him on accident.
He's already so into the.
He's already into deep. Yeah,
it's already so deep. I mean, he was even saying like to spoil it. First of all, if you haven't seen Insomnia, there's spoilers in this.
Oh yeah,
but
came out in 2002.
At the end, he basically says, but I mean, like at the end, he basically says like he planted the evidence, and he's like, I knew that this was going to catch up to me. So I think that mindset of him already being kind of fucked, like he already knows, like at the end of the day, like it's going to be, I'm going to get caught. I know that some happenstance. So I think that he continues to make these rash choices. Yeah, based on the fact that he knows that he's already in it.
Yeah, and some of these rash choices include he does pick up the .38 pistol that Robin Williams ended up dropping, and he claims that it was actually shot by him, the suspect. We don't know it's Robin Williams yet, and he doesn't mention that he has the .38. So this whole issue with the guns and the caliber of bullets, this becomes like a big thing throughout the movie as our little Ellie Burr starts her own little junior investigation. So here's what I want to say. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't understand. So she's like his shadow, and she gets introduced as his shadow. So like she's working for him,
right?
Basically, as he's already assigned to the case.
He's already assigned to like the K Connell case or whatever, right?
Yeah, but when Robin Williams asks her what her association with the case is, she responds by saying, "Oh, I'm only like affiliated with the cop death, and I'm investigating the shooting."
So I think what ended up happening, I think what ends up happening because he puts her
with that entire case.
I think he just puts her on it, and like I want you to investigate this. And the only reason I think that he does that is because he can control what she finds, and like what he can kind of feed her like information on because he tells her this is where I heard the shot from and all this other stuff, and she takes what he says as first as gospel because she respects him. I think it's a good time to kind of bring up her as a character because I know you said that she seemed like she was underserved a little bit or underutilized. I think I used to feel that way a lot. While watching it the other day, I mean, we always talk about this with Mr. Brooks, where like I read into something too much, and like this is what it was supposed to be.
You're inferring.
I always got the impression like the point of her character was maybe at one point Al Pacino's character was just like her, maybe young and idealistic, and really cared about the work, which is why he kind of
make a difference.
Which is why he kind of respects her too, because he doesn't really, even though he tries to lead her in the wrong direction at times. There's this one thing that he does where I feel like he wants to get caught, when she's like, hey, can you just sign off on the report? Because like he could have easily signed off on it and be like, this is where I heard the shot, this is what happened, this was the caliber of bullet, this was the gun, like whatever. And he tells her to go back and look at it more thoroughly before, because her name's on the report. So I think in his own way, he's doing that. He almost feels guilty and doesn't want her to like, you know.
Because here's the thing too, like if she gets it, like if he doesn't get caught, then she's fine. She signed off on the report and she did the right thing. But if he does get caught, which he knows he will, she's going to be the one on the report to say he was fine. I think he internally knows. He's like, I think that I'm saving her a chance to, like, I know I'm going to get caught. Like, don't put your name on this. Don't do this to yourself.
That's a good way to look at it too.
Because also, like, I'm looking out for your future. Like, you're going to be the one that on this report, it says, I knew something was up and I actually led to the discovery. But then in the end, she's like, this bullet, like, she's willing to save him in the end.
Yeah, that's true. But it's because she feels that
Which is like,
he didn't mean to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. I will say, I do think, I agree with you a little bit that the character is a bit underwritten compared to, God, even Robin Williams' character, who doesn't even appear until like 61 minutes into the movie, guys. When you like, I remember the first time I saw this, I was like, where is he? When does he pop up?
Dude, okay. Can we before that, can we talk about the trailer? Because I watched the trailer to
I watched it too. Was it like really bad voice?
It is insufferable. It is an insufferable trailer, and it is a reason that I am so glad we do not live in the early 2000s anymore, because
we don't have the
trailers are atrocious. They are so bad. It is a joke. It makes me feel like this high energy.
Yeah,
like,
it's like
in the world.
Yeah.
Like it's bad, man. It is laughable, and I actually laughed out loud watching the trailer.
So I popped it on after I watched the movie, and I was like, doesn't sell this well. Yeah, maybe in 2002 it probably did sell it well, which is probably why you're like, I'm glad we don't live in that period anymore. I need to look up when we did away with the voiceover guy, because it was well past 2002 that we still had him for a little bit. Because I know he was doing.
Taken was the year.
That could be it.
After Taken, I think that was the year that they're like, all right, that's enough.
Yeah, I mean, some people are nostalgic for the voiceover dude, man. It is like a throwback to like, when you had to have someone tell you what was going on in the trailer, like you couldn't just figure it out for yourself. But yeah, this trailer is not good.
Probably is sitting on royalties for generations now.
Yeah, I would say that anyone, I mean, if you're my generation watching the trailer, you'll be like, all right, whatever, this is of its time. If you were a newer viewer to that movie, I feel like you shouldn't watch the trailer, because I don't think it'll make you want to
watch the trailer. You'll never want to watch the movie.
I don't think it'll make you want to watch it. And I felt that way as soon as it was on. As soon as I heard the guy's voice, I was like, oh, this is bad. This is really, really bad. But so we have the whole thing with the bullets. Like he goes to the coroner or the pathologist, and they hand him the bag bullet retrieved from Hap's body, and she's unfamiliar with the type because all they have is like hunting and stuff like that. She's like, I don't know what type of bullet this is.
Great corner, by the way. Great corner. Yeah, good at her job.
Good at her job.
Has no idea about anything besides like a 38 or
flat out says, I don't know what this is. Yeah. So Dormer leaves and switches the 38 bullet for the 9mm slug from Hap's body in order to cover up the fact that he shot him. And then over the next few days, Dormer's plagued by insomnia, which is like there's a lot of scenes where he is plagued constantly by not being able to sleep. I mean, I think I've never been awake for like 4 days or anything like that. But I do know what it's like to not get sleep. And I think the movie sells the whole feeling of like what kind of, and it was interesting too, because Steven Soderbergh.
It's not about not being tired. It's about just like not being able to relax.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing. It's like insomnia has nothing to do with the fact that like you just can't sleep. Like you can't just like actually fall asleep. It's mostly like even when you are in that restless state, you still sort of daydream and doze.
Right.
And when you're in that dozing state, like you can't tell if what you're sort of dreaming is real or not.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big stage of it, where it's like he's just kind of going out of disassociation and real life, and he just doesn't really know sort of what is important and not. And so like that's why like in the end I think he concedes his decision, is because he's realizing he's like I've been not really thinking that this is either a big deal or I'm hiding it too much. This needs to come out. And he realizes it at the end.
Yeah,
but
and he's starting to like hallucinate and like kind of see things. He sees Hap a lot. Like
the window frame, where it's always lit up.
Yeah,
it was great. It was great. It was annoying. Even seeing it in the movie, I was like, oh my god.
And I love that scene with Maura Tierney when she comes in the room and she's like, "Are you all right?" And he's like, "Oh, it's just so bright in here." And she's like, "No, it's dark." And she flips the light on, and it does that effect where like it just gets bright in the room. And he's just like, "Oh," and he's like, "All right, you can turn it off."
Like, turn it off. Turn off.
Oh yeah,
turn off.
I like that they did that though. That kind of show like, you're in a completely like, you're clearly losing it a little bit.
Yeah.
Her character's interesting too because I went back and forth like, is she not pointless? I don't want to say that. I think it ends up being an important sounding board for him to tell the truth about towards the end about like the situation with his case back home. And I think he trusts her in some way because like she has no skin in the game at all. She's not a cop. She's just someone that's met them like staying at this like hotel where they're staying at.
She even mentions too. She says only people that live in Alaska are people that were born here or people that are trying to escape. And she said, I wasn't born here. So I think that she's trying to escape something too. So that she has some sort of unanswered past, which means that he can kind of tell her anything.
Really, yeah.
And like,
it's like
she's
unspoken
like,
kind of thing.
Call the cops on you. She's like, I'm not gonna call the cops on you. Like, even if you did something terrible, like that's the reason I'm here. You might have done something worse. Who knows?
Yeah.
But like,
and that could be like the importance of her character.
Ended up. Yeah, but I don't understand why she ended up in his bed at the end. Like she slept there that night.
She just fell asleep. Yeah. I don't know. Is there anything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the significance of that. It was just kind of like maybe it was 6 a.m. Like who knows? Because you never know.
Yeah.
It's always
maybe they just kind of like talked to the night and then they fell asleep. And maybe there's nothing more. Not that morning, whatever it was.
He's standing there in the same clothes, just like he's probably delirious. Yeah.
But I will say I did like that scene though. It's like this, it really was like this one moment of honesty between strangers where it's like, I can tell you this because you're not involved and you're not going to judge me. And I think it feels that way where she can listen to it. And like you said, she's not going to do anything about it. Yeah. She's not in the position to. So I guess in hindsight, I mean, when I first saw it, I was like, seems like a really thankless role, but I guess for the sake of like his development towards the end, she does play.
It provokes his confession. Basically.
Yeah, it does. So while he's fighting with all this insomnia, he's starting to get these phone calls from who we eventually learn to be Walter Finch, Robin Williams, who writes crime novels. I asked you guys, someone who probably mostly knows Robin Williams for being the funny guy. What did you think about him here? Because I have an interesting parallel between this and Mr. Brooks, and what I was trying to explain with Kevin Costner, I think Robin Williams does a much better job at just playing it straight, which makes it creepy.
Yeah, where it's an unintentional, like you don't expect him to be creepy.
Yeah. What did you think?
I mean, I thought he did a really good job. He felt the right amount of a little bit of mania and scared, where he can tell at certain points he thinks he has control of the situation. And he's like, I know what's going on. I have kind of developed this into what I believe is going to be the outcome. Then when the variables hit, you can see him get more scared and more willing to act. Obviously why he attacks the cop at the end, where he's like willing to be more aggressive. But I think you can really believe he thinks he's in control. Which is a scary thing to think of when you're thinking of a psychotic killer. He does a really good job making me believe that he thinks it was an accident. Even though
that's a good point.
I know, like even after watching all of it, he had no issue killing her. He wanted to.
Yeah.
So like I do believe and that's why Al Pacino does a good job, because he's like, I've dealt with you motherfuckers for 30 years.
Yeah, you're full of shit.
It doesn't matter to me. Like, you're a job. I have no issue why you did it, but why you did it is why I get paid. So that's why I'm bringing you in.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Williams does a great job making it feel like he's trying to convince me, but also keep me in question, because he's very convincing.
Yeah, I love. By the way, I love that Al Pacino at one point breaks into his apartment because he wants to plant this gun, because he wants to like frame. Well, I guess Yeah, frame him for shooting his partner on Walter Finch, because since Finch is going to be, he wants him to be the suspect in this girl's murder. On the other hand, Walter Finch wants this girl Kay, who he's had, the 17-year-old girl who he has some kind of relationship with, is in high school. She has a high school boyfriend. Finch wants them to pin it on him because, from his talks with her, he knows that the boyfriend had been, abusive. I'm sure he knows that the boyfriend has cheated on her with her best friend. Like, he knows all this stuff about the boyfriend. So it's like, this is the way we should sell it, especially since I know that you actually shot your friend. Like, I'll help you if you help me, kind of thing. But I love that scene where he hides the gun and they have this whole chase and stuff, and he goes back to the apartment, and Robin Williams just calls his apartment, and the machine picks up, and he's basically like, "Oh, I know you're there. Like, can you pick up, like whatever?" And he doesn't pick up, and then he calls back, and the machine picks up again, and then he's like, "Bro, whatever." He picks up the phone, and he starts talking to him. Like, this is a really funny like exchange that they have back and forth.
Yeah.
Even asks him to feed his dogs before he hangs up on him.
Yeah. Oh my god, that was hilarious. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I thought that was really. I thought the scenes together were really good. Like, they have a good kind of like psychological like warfare that goes on with each other. The one on the phone I thought was the one where he's describing how he killed her is, I think, Robin Williams' strongest scene, because it starts so calm where, like you said, it feels like to him like it was an accident. And, basically explained that she came over like she usually does, and we were talking, and she's telling me about her boyfriend and all this stuff. And then, of course, he kisses her, and then he got excited from kissing her, and then she started laughing at him. And then you kind of see this subtle switch in how he tells the story, where, like, she was just laughing, and she wouldn't stop laughing at me. So, like, basically I hit her to make her stop, and I hit her again, and like hit her again. And
then she would stop screaming, so I had to shut her up.
And yeah, then it goes from being calm, it was an accident, to like you can see there's like this pent up rage underneath it.
Yeah, progression.
Yeah, like he almost seems like he wants to cry a little bit when he's like describing it, because he's like, she did this to me, and I had to like shut her up because like he was.
This is also probably the first time that he's talked about it, maybe ever.
Right.
So like him actually describing it to someone, he's just like, I mean, he even says it too. It's like, it's so good to finally talk about this with someone.
Yeah. And he's like, do you want to talk about do you want to talk?
Yeah, like tell me about your horrible experience of murdering someone.
Yeah, where it was an accident.
Right. And then Al Pacino's like, he just immediately on the phone.
Yeah, I think their scenes together are really good. Like, I think they kind of have a good balance of, even though Al Pacino's losing it, he's still kind of on toe to toe with him a bit, at least like on the psychological like dealing with him front. Definitely not chasing him down, because there's
I kind of like their actual interaction, like on the boat, on the ferry. I like when they're kind of negotiating like how to kind of go about it.
Yeah,
because like Pacino in his whole character in and of itself is this very strong, hard, by the book kind of guy, and to have this one case that has derailed his entire like morale and morals and what he does. Like, he's willing to, he knows this guy's the killer. He's confessed to him, and he's sitting there bargaining with him on how they're going to frame someone else. So like, it's crazy to kind of see this like golden boy cop who is discussing with this victim, this perpetrator and murderer.
Yeah.
He believes. He's like, oh, I know. I kind of believe, even if it wasn't an accident, I'll do it so I can save my own skin.
Yeah.
So that sort of negotiation between them on how they're going to go about this is it's crazy to see Pacino's deviation to immediately go towards, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure that I don't get caught.
Yeah.
And that's going to lead towards
yeah,
some serious consequences.
Yeah. And there's also what I like about the interactions too is that Robin Williams, when he's talking with him about how they should go up, like when he's explaining like, oh, like, you know, we need a wild card, we need this, you know, we need all these variables, so like how we can make this work. He's so calm, and he's so like, you can tell like he's a very intelligent man too. Like he knows exactly what he's talking about. It would be easy for you to play that part like you're crazy, and he doesn't. There's, I mean, of course, there's subtle things when he's describing certain stuff, but like as a him making general conversation, he doesn't sound like he's unhinged. Like he sounds like he's pretty put together.
Like when he was interviewed at the station.
Yeah, so that scene really like a lot, and I love the way it comes together. Where, I mean, of course, you assume like, yeah, the whole situation with the gun, like Robin Williams is probably like one step ahead when it comes to like where they hid that gun. But I love the realization in the scene where he's like, yeah, she said that and he would keep it in like this location. He just like looks over at him like kind of like, yeah, where you tried to hide it, and then like he was like, oh, I gotta go. He's like, oh, I gotta go. He's like, no. He's like,
yeah, he knows exactly what's going on. Oh, dude, but Chino's face just like falls, and he's like, I'm gonna fuck with this guy.
Yeah,
I know you killed her, bitch.
Yeah, so I was wondering too how you felt about the shift in sudden anger. Like, was it like, why do you think he did that? I mean, instead of just playing it cool and be like, I know that you know about the whole gun situation. Like, why does he like just snap at him and like basically berate him and then belittle him for?
I think it was more of a show of, regardless of what you have on me, I still sort of have the upper hand because I work for the police. It might have been like, hey, like I got people on my side. I have a little bit more credibility than you do. So like, if you're gonna try and pull this on me, like I'm gonna pull everything on you. And like, I know you killed her. All I can say is it was an accident. You might think he has more leverage, so he just kind of went after it. And but he also can't reveal everything. He has to act like he doesn't know him. So it's a very interesting scene to see the dynamics between.
What I love about that scene,
who's winning the battle?
Who's winning this? Like, what's cool about that scene too is that like you also have Fred, who's played by Nicky, Katt, and Ellie in that room, and they're kind of like something like, why is there so much tension between these two? If this is the first time ever that it's the first time they've ever met, allegedly, like you could tell that she knows for sure that like something's up.
I think the guy was pretty naive.
Yeah, I think he was too, and I love the way that scene's played though, because Pacino and him both know these things about each other. And you can tell when Pacino digs about like buying her gifts and like whether or not he wanted to like have sex with her and like all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. And he was like, well, no, she's only 17. And she was like, well, she was pretty good looking for 17. Like when he's digging at him about that, you could tell Robin Williams' response to it isn't an act. Like it's bothering him. It's starting to get to him. And and it's just interesting, like in a scene like that where, there are two other people in it where they have no idea what's going on between these two, and just, watching this kind of like tension grow between these other two characters who are, I'm digging at you because you know this about me, and like I'm gonna dig at you because you know this about me. And I love how that scene is played. And of course we get some like signature like Al Pacino yelling. We get a few Al Pacino yelling scenes in this movie. No, he's really tired of this movie.
You know what you're getting when you sign up Al Pacino. You know exactly what you're getting.
And to his credit, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how. I've never watched a lot of movies where people play that they have insomnia, where they like look like they're restless and can't sleep. He looks like he hasn't slept in days.
He looks like, exhausted.
Like his like eyes are constantly eyes are half closed. The way he responds to things, like he doesn't even like give people full answers anymore. Like through half the movie, like oh yeah.
Like kind of like always wondering, yeah.
And then you can just see poor.
I've been at moments where I'm exhausted like that, and you just kind of go through the motions. Like, I mean, I think he did great. Did a great job.
Yeah, I thought he sold that so well, because it was like, I don't know. I hear that researching some of the stuff for this movie, Pacino can be pretty method. So like, I wonder if he was like, I'm just not gonna sleep.
How much he stayed up all night?
Right, exactly.
How much does Scarface stay up all night?
All night, yeah.
Insomnia.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. There you get the reference. There you get the reference, guys.
Yeah, very method. Yeah, very method.
But yeah, that interrogation scene is great, and then we already talked about the scene with the hotel owner. How did you? This is the one thing, and I guess you have to wrap the movie up. I guess I think Ellie just coming upon the shell casing. I mean, I guess she was looking around for something. Yeah. But it felt very like, oh, like there it is, like like. This.
I could have done it.
Pretty much, and she's like, "Oh," that then she put.
Sold.
Now I do love that she put together that he had a backup gun because she had done a case study on him and she knew that he had like one, and I like that. I just didn't love like it felt like happenstance that she stumbled upon like the 9mm casing, and
I think the stumble upon is pretty. I mean, towards the end, I was just kind of like, really, like that. This didn't really make sense.
Like why I know the movie has to wrap. I know it has to wrap up, and she's like a little junior investigator, and
she had way better details to tie him to all of it.
All of it.
That Like,
yeah,
there were way
starting with the whole like, yeah, you couldn't have heard the shot from over there. It started from like the very
there
beginning.
were so many separate things that she could have nailed him on besides the casing that
Yeah.
made that just kind of be like a filler, or it was just a reason for her to be there.
Right. And to give
But-
to everyone listening, I do want to give Hilary Swank some credit though, because I agree with Owen. It is a underutilized role and it's kind of underwritten, but I think she does the best she can with it. Like, she's very likable in the movie. You actually believe her admiration for Will Dormer, and I guess that's how she played it.
Like, I mean, you kind of start to realize like her admiration turns into realization for what the role can lead to.
So yeah, so
You
like
know?
what
Whereas,
someone in
I mean,
position.
that's his sort of like protecting stance too on her, is like, oh, like I was kind of like you, like I wanted to save the world and do all these things.
Yeah.
But then to actually catch the bad ones, sometimes you have to do a bad thing, which is what he did. I mean, he's like, I know this is the fucking guy. That's why I'm going to plant this evidence.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, like, kind of, I think he feels guilty about the fact that he has done some bad things, but he shows this great progression into seeing and wanting to be like him for a good reason, for his success, his track record, but also then realizing like
this is where I can go.
Being mad at like being mad at him, being like, oh, you were a bad person, to the very end sort of realizing it was an accident and he's trying to do a lot of other things. He's got a lot of stuff on his plate, and her willing to kind of throw the evidence away.
Right, yeah.
For him. Which is crazy. Like, she didn't know him.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he hasn't even been there long.
It's a very interesting like sort of
it's an interesting role too, because it's
growing up very quick as a cop to like being willing to forgive this dirty one for no reason is a little bit doesn't really make sense. But
I think this is a good example though of an actor giving you more than like probably what was on the page, though. I think she tries to flesh Ellie out a bit more. I do know that it was easy for her to play admiration for Dormer because she said as an actor she was working with Pacino, and she was like, she looks up to him and admires him, so she just used that the entire time they were acting together. So it was really easy for her to like I know, right? So she said it was really easy for her to just be like enamored by him because like she's like, it's Pacino, so this is not really a hard role for me to play at all.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I was thinking about like Robin Williams, who's, I mean, obviously not a serious dramatic actor. Like not.
He's been in some stuff. I mean,
but he's not like a lifelong actor by trade. Like, he's a comedian.
Right.
So like to see him next to Pacino, and I could see Pacino is just like acting his fucking chops off, like in some of these scenes, especially on the ferry. Like when they're so close together and they're having these, like, I imagine Robin Williams being like, "Oh my god, I am next to this genius, like this actor." And like, I mean, seeing him do something next to Pacino like that is pretty impressive.
You know what's crazy is that all three of the leads at this point have Oscars. Like Hilary Swank had already won one in '99 for Boys Don't Cry. Pacino won one for Scent of a Woman. Had been nominated countless times before that. Robin Williams already won for Good Will Hunting. So you have like these three Oscar winners together, but very different walks of acting life, right? Like where like it's like you wouldn't normally catch them in a movie together. And I kind of agree with you. I wonder what it was like for Robin Williams to act alongside him. And you know, if Pacino looked at Robin Williams,
he wasn't like, I don't think he joined Good Will Hunting being like, I'm searching for an Oscar.
No, I don't think so.
There's no way like you can join that kind of movie and expect to be critically acclaimed, and then he just jumps from that to stardom after being a comedian for so long. Like, I mean, that's probably what has inspired people like Adam Sandler and other comedians to want to do more
because
dramatic.
like he's done like, I mean, throughout his career, like in the '80s, he did like Dead Poet Society, which is more dramatic, but there's like a hint of like the Robin Williams we know and love in that performance too. And even though Good Will Hunting,
best performance of all time, Flubber.
I feel like we brought up Flubber before on the podcast before.
Second time,
Flubber,
Big Two,
the Big Two. Even in Good Will Hunting, it's a more serious role, but you still see shades of Robin Williams in that. With this movie, and
here you don't know.
There you don't, and in 1 hour photo, maybe I'll deep dive it later. Like you don't see it there either. He's completely not himself. So like, but I think like comedians can like play these roles really well. They have like a little bit of a dark side, I guess, because like, you know, they usually Well, I mean, usually comedians are like funny because they're like trying to mask a lot of bullshit, right? So like that's why Jim Carrey, you talk Adam Sandler, like they can transition into serious roles a bit more. I think it's crazy that Robin Williams did 2 psychological thrillers in the same year and pulled it off greatly. But like it's interesting, that this was direction. But yeah, like when I was looking at the cast, I was like, yeah, they had all 3 won Oscars at this point. Dude. And she'll win a second one a few years later for $1 Million Baby. Like it's crazy. And now she's like doing stuff now.
Now she's kind of, I don't want to say
she's on TV. She's on TV now. It's fine. TV's good. Not saying anything's wrong with TV.
It's okay. Well done.
She's on Alaska Daily. I heard it's pretty good. I've never watched it. She needs to go back to Alaska because she loved doing this movie.
Yeah, right. So I wanted to ask you about the action because for me,
I feel like I know where you're going with this.
it's not good. It's not good.
Well, we got 2. How old were they at this point?
That's what I'm saying, dude. The scene where they're running after each other and
it's like really slow.
It's like so bad. I'm like, these men are in their almost 60s and they're running after each other like lumberyard.
Yeah. So that scene, so funny that you mentioned it. So I'm watching that scene. And I was like, Owen's going to say something about like how the action looks. Because I'm watching Pacino run. First of all, I watched Pacino hop a fence. Which, I mean, I thought Robin Williams hopping the fence. Like, I totally saw that. No. But he didn't have Pacino just like hop it. He scaled it. Like, completely scaled the fence.
Scaled it.
And then when he's like chasing after him, and like he's kind of close to him, but not really. Like, it's like almost like he's running in place. And like his hands are really funny and weird. They did the best they could.
Dude, it's bad. It's bad. I'm like, these 2 60-year-old men are not running after each other. And then, like, what's the significance of the log drowning? Like,
so I thought, you know what? I did like it visually though. I mean, it is a claustrophobic. It makes you feel like really claustrophobic.
I mean, thinking about it, it was very claustrophobic. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the point.
Probably just Christopher Nolan just wanted to like throw in some nice visual.
And then, dude, like, he hops out of the water. His hair's still like somewhat greasy. Like it doesn't look like he just took a plunge in the fucking ocean. Like,
yeah,
he still looks like. I actually believe. I don't think that was Al Pacino in the water. I think that was a double.
It's definitely a double. Oh my god, I would hope so.
Al Pacino's like, I'm not doing that shit. There's no fucking way Al Pacino actually got into a fucking.
I'm sure Pacino's double was used a few times.
And did that.
I think his double was used a few times in that movie. He definitely didn't scale that fence whatsoever. No. And neither did Robin Williams. That credit, but I could buy Robin Williams hopping a fence more than Al Pacino. But yeah, I totally knew you were gonna bring that up. That one was it's not great, but I say
it's
visually
2000s kind of movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say the visual of the drowning underneath the logs was like cool visual gag though. I thought that was
oh yeah.
Really well.
I will say it's a new fear of mine. Unlocked.
Then watching him close. Yeah, watching him just close in on you right trying to get out.
You can't get air, you'll get decapitated by
logs. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh Jesus.
Yes, that was definitely scary, but it just seems a little bit necessary.
Yeah. And then they have another action scene towards the end when they were fighting each other. Finch
they always gravitate towards hand-to-hand combat. You also have guns. Shoot each other.
Shoot each other.
Like,
yeah.
Why are you gonna run at him? Makes no sense.
Yeah, because at this point, Burr is already. But does she already know? She thinks something's up with Finch, right? By the time she gets to his lake house.
Yeah, she's following up.
Okay,
she's making sure. I think that she's making sure her suspicions are right. I think by following up with Finch and just kind of being like, hey, like this bullet doesn't make sense. Like.
Yeah.
What was your relationship with him? I knew something was up, and then he just.
By the way, I typed in because I'm trying to start to do this just in case if there's any movie that has unanswered questions. I typed in what are some other answered questions about Insomnia. There was a Reddit post with a few comments that one of them was like, "Why does Hilary Swank grab Al Pacino's ass when they're outside the restaurant before she leaves and says like it's a pleasure working with you, Detective Dormer?" And I was like, I would just like to point out she did not grab his ass. She was checking to see if he had his gun because like that was like her evidence, like that he would like if he didn't have the gun on him anymore, then he definitely did what she suspected him of. I thought that made sense, but other people online thought that she was just grabbing Al Pacino's, groping Al Pacino's booty for no reason. But no, she was just checking for the gun, and it wasn't there. And you could tell.
Choice.
You could tell in the way when she grabs for it, and she says it's a pleasure working with you, and her voice kind of cracks. It's like this disappointment when she realizes, like, oh, like this is definitely true. He definitely did it. She wasn't grabbing his butt, guys. In case you were wondering.
Hey guys, as much as you want to have your butt grabbed by Hilary Swank.
Hilary Swank.
No.
This is another thing I don't love about movies sometimes, but I get it. It's exposition. Like, they're clearly in danger with Robin Williams' character. And then she kind of puts a gun on Pacino, and she's like, all this exposition of like, oh, you killed him and you did this. And like, did you mean to do it? And he's just like, oh, I don't know anymore. I don't know anymore. But like, there's other more serious things happening, like at play. Like, hey, this guy knocks you out earlier. I'm sure. I'm sure. Like, I just hate when that happens in movies, but I get it. She had to like confront him at some point. But I do love his answer though, because he easily could have been like, it was an accident. I don't know, but he was like, I think he's honest to the point that what he can be is like, I couldn't see him in the fog, but I really don't know anymore. Like, he's lost his mind from not having any sleep, like all the stuff that he's gone through, like psychologically, like he doesn't have an idea of like what's true and what's not anymore at that point.
I think that he does exactly kind of what he says. He's like, I shot him, didn't see who it was. He looked exactly like the person I was chasing, so I shot him. Then got up close, and Hal's realization was that he thought that he was shot by Dooley or by Pacino. So it's like, I understand sort of everything that went on. I don't think that he meant to shoot him, but when he did, he was happy.
He realized he could.
It made everything easier.
Yeah. Oh, interesting, man. Because like, I mean, he's not happy that he's dying, right? I mean, like he feels like he wants to help him at first. Like he wants to he's putting pressure on the wound. He's like, yo, calm down.
That's
like,
the only time you see some sort of compassion from him is when he's actually dying.
That's true. Well, that's an interesting take.
Besides
he's certainly covering up like he doesn't care.
Yeah, exactly.
Shit. Well,
but then it gets to him enough in the end where he's like, I can't keep hiding this. I know it's going to come out. Like, I'd rather just be like, come clean.
Right.
But besides that, like the only time he shows compassion for his partner, he's abusively yelling at him in the beginning of the movie, just being like, fuck you, don't do this shit. Like, I'm going to get up and leave. Like, how dare you turn me in? You're compromising everything I've ever worked for. Like, I mean, he's not good with his partner.
No, not at all.
When he finally dies, he's like, I mean, I didn't mean to do this, but it's not going to affect him.
Yeah.
He cares more about his own
butt.
Future than
his own butt. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But there is. I mean, I don't want to call it. I guess it is kind of redemption. He ends up basically saving Ellie. Like, he kills Finch. I think. Well, they kill each other. Both fire off shots at each other. One with a shotgun, the other with pistol, and Robin Williams quickly dies. And then, like you mentioned earlier, Ellie tells him, like, shell casing, she's just throw it away, because she's like, you may not do this as an accident, but I know it was an accident and no one has to know. And he stops her from doing that because he doesn't want her to basically become like him, because she's still one of the good ones so far. So I've had friends say it's a little bit of a cheesy ending, but I think it's like kind of where you go with it. Like, at that point, like, it has to be some kind of redemption for him, and then you want to come out of it where she's not corrupted by the stuff that she's seen too. Like, you want to believe that she would still be idealistic about the job, and even though she's seeing firsthand that it's not everyone is not a good cop or a detective. Like, there are a lot of dirty ones too, and even the one she admired the most is dirty on top of that. So,
but then that comes they're dirty, but for what reason? He was trying to put some bad person away that might have gotten off because, so I think that she respected his drive to any costs. He didn't mean to do anything of the things that he did, but she shouldn't have looked past murder of his partner. I think she was very quick to forgive him. Like, it was okay.
Yeah, it is true, because I think there's I think there's a 5 minute, maybe not even 5 minute, between the whole
how dare
you killed it, how dare you?
It's okay.
She's like, I know you didn't mean to do it. Like, no one has to know. There is it's in between. Yeah. And, and in true poetic fashion, he's like, no, like help is coming, and he's like, no, just let me sleep. That's all he's wanted to do this entire movie is just fucking go to sleep. And I know it might be cheesy to some, but I think it's kind of nice that it ends on that note. Like, I don't know how else you end it.
It's not
really.
I mean, if it was accompanied by like some serious
Like the music doesn't swell.
like swell, like
Yeah.
there's no like big swell at the end where it's like just let
like
me
pounding
sleep.
his chest
Then
and,
I would say that was fucking stupid. But I
And
thought it was
it's not like
it
he
was
like
nonchalant enough.
it's not like it's like his tongue comes out where he's like like it's not like that. Yeah, I think it's a well done ending though.
Yeah, it was enough. It was enough. Just like very casual, colloquial. Take that. Other than like name the name of the movie, Insomnia. Like I'm finally gonna. Yeah, no, I don't need. Yeah.
So before we get to some facts about the movie and how the movie did when it came out, I know we kind of touched on it with the Nolan stuff. After watching this, I know you said earlier it felt like this felt very early Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
So in the grand scheme of things, though, do you think that it stands up with the rest of his filmography, or does it feel like he's still kind of finding his way as a filmmaker compared to his other films? And like, keep in mind too, like the scope of something like this is different from like Inception or Interstellar.
Yeah. No, I think that it's definitely feels early Christopher Nolan. And also see where he gets his cinematography and his vision from. Especially the opening shots of
the establishing shots of
and like that is just classic Christopher Nolan. Seems like I think he gravitated away from some of the very quick cut like chase scenes when they're clambering over rocks, to try and like chase after someone. I think he has definitely gone away from that, thank God, because that is just a hard thing for as a viewer to watch. Like 65, 70-year-old man clambering over rocks in 100 takes. Like it just doesn't. It's very. It's really hard to watch. So I'm glad he got away from that in terms of his action style, but I really do think the visuals and the way that the story is told with some sort of hook at the end. Christopher Nolan just constantly making good content.
Yeah, he's a brilliant filmmaker. What I was most taken away with watching this is I don't feel like there's many signs that he will go on to do like a Batman Begins or these bigger movies when you're watching this. But it's still refreshing that he got to that point. It is like interesting to see like, what did like Warner Brothers see in him where they're like, oh, like this guy can handle like an even bigger budget and an even bigger scope for like some of these future movies, because Insomnia starts his relationship with Warner Brothers up until Tenet. Oppenheimer he's doing with Universal, and that's all because of the whole like HBO Max hybrid theatrical release thing. He didn't agree with that, so he took his movies elsewhere now. But this began his long relationship with Warner Brothers, and he made some big movies for them. But I'm just like, I'm wondering what they saw in like Memento and stuff like this, where they were like, this guy can handle like an even bigger budget and even a bigger responsibility than this. I guess if you can work with Pacino and Williams, you can handle like a big budget like anything else. If you can work with like actors like that, you can handle like a bigger production budget. Like, I guess we see it all the time too, where like there's a lot of indie filmmakers that have like one indie film, and then you've seen it with some of the cases with some of the Marvel movies where they made one small movie, and then Feige finds them and like suddenly they're doing like Captain Marvel or Spider-Man Homecoming. And they've never really done like a big movie before. But it is interesting to see like the early seeds of like at least some of his visuals that you kind of see in like his other movies too. Like he has always been a really good visual storyteller, I think. And you get a sense of that here. I think the cinematography in this movie is really good too. It's shot
fantastic.
Really well. Something that came out in 2002. And
it's hard for me to think that they saw this and immediately imagined a superhero film.
Yeah.
I think Nolan was in the sweet spot where, like, just in general, people didn't really know what a superhero film was yet.
Yeah.
That's when Dark Knight came out, and it's why DC has been so unsuccessful, because they can't replicate that. Can't replicate something that came out like pretty much at equilibrium with Iron Man and failed after like they only made a couple movies. Like
Yeah.
Dark Knight and Batman Begins was one of the best superhero movies that could have launched a very realistic superhuman and sort of that kind of dynasty, and in turn they just decided not to copy that. They went from way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
I really think that like he took it as like not having seen decades worth of superhero movies to basis and a groundbreaking on a precedent. Like I'm gonna make it for myself in a certain way, and I think they saw that, and yeah, he hit the sweet spot. So
yeah, I think so, and I think what you see kind of in Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises, just using those as examples, like Insomnia is just a pure psychological thriller. You look at those Batman movies; they are comic book movies, but they're grounded in this kind of like adult thriller kind of like aesthetic, where it are adult drama thrillers masquerading as comic book movies, and maybe that is maybe that is what maybe that is what they wanted him to take from like, hey, your earlier work, which is pretty grounded and pretty adult and not fantastical, like take that and apply it to Batman universe, and maybe that could have been what they saw in him, because you really do kind of see that.
I think that's what they took out of Matt Reeves when he made the new Batman. I mean, I think that's what they saw in him too.
Yeah,
they're like, give me your take,
Yeah.
And Nolan does a great job in this movie to just kind of show like, hey, here's a cinematic version of this point in time. God, Alaska is a great place to put it.
Yeah, I mean, you get a lot of great visuals from that. I mean, it was just visually very beautiful.
Yeah, and not having a night is crazy.
Right, and they made a get in the scene like in the fog, like where he's chasing after and he shoots his friend. Nolan said what he was intrigued by with this movie is that he got to make a really dark thriller that was set primarily during the day. And how do you maintain the film's overall darkness as a plot when there's not a lot of darkness going on aesthetically in the movie? So the movie still feels dark, even though it's taking place mostly in like total daylight. And I thought he accomplished that too, like what he tried to set out in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, crazy when you see Chino doing like the hiding his own actions, like when he's shooting the dog, already dead dog, ballistics. I mean, that could be in the morning, but it looks like it's at 11 in the afternoon.
Right, exactly.
It's so that's a super weird way to show how that character has no idea kind of like what's going on, because he doesn't even know what time of day it is. I mean, as a viewer, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm gonna say this. I agree with Nolan. I think this is his most underrated movie of his filmography. I've heard a lot of people say The Prestige. I thought a lot of people loved that. People consider The Prestige underrated. But I think this one is, because I legit talk to other film people and they'll name his movies and they forget to name this one until you bring it up and they're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Like that was pretty good. Like they kind of forget about it. So hopefully, it has like I mean, as he has a movie coming out this summer, like when you're going back to his filmography, maybe you want to rewatch his stuff, like make this one of your choices too, guys, just in case.
Yeah.
It's a good early start. I mean, Memento is like, a really good beginning for him. I mean, it's a brilliant movie. I think this one deserves some love too, as fans as well. I think.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's definitely one that you got to check out. But I will say that I do like his later stuff more. I think he's definitely.
That's fair.
There's a reason that he has progressed as a director. I can tell he's gotten better, because this is a fantastically shot movie, but his progression into what he's become now, I can tell this was the jump start.
Yeah. So
definitely give this movie a shot, because it is worth it to see. First of all, I mean, it's Pacino. You got to see some Pacino and him stuttering through the stuff as he's actually.
By the way, the whole main cast have like last names. You can just say their last name, just like Pacino, Williams, Swank. Just do it like that. They've got that clout in the cast. We have there's gonna be some 3 polls that we're gonna throw up. I'm gonna throw up whether or not you think it was an accident that he shot his friend's partner. We're gonna ask you, is this his most underrated movie? And then we'll also ask you, I know where this is going, but we'll ask you if he's gotten better as a filmmaker since making Insomnia. I know where that third one's going. I'm just going to tell him.
I think we should do a write-in where what do you think his what his best movie, like his most underrated movie is?
Yes.
See if this
and see how many people say Insomnia.
How many people say this one? Yeah.
All right, we'll do that for sure. All right, when this movie came out on May 24th, it opened to a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes with 200 reviews counted. And it says, driven by Pacino's performance, Insomnia is a smart and riveting psychological drama. The director of the Norwegian film was asked about Nolan's reinterpretation of his work, and he said it was quite close stylistically to the original. I felt lucky that it's such a well-crafted, smart film and that it had a really good director handling it, because as a remake, I think it did really well, and it doesn't hurt any original if a remake is well done. So I felt I was lucky that Christopher Nolan took it upon himself to do it. He also
that's high praise, man.
That is high praise
you can get from that. That's the highest praise you can get.
That is high praise.
Roger my movie, and you did a good job. Like
you did a good job.
That's the best way you can do it.
Roger Ebert, the late Roger Ebert with two thumbs. Our boy Roger Ebert. Al Pacino and Robin Williams have the best performance they've given in years when he saw it. And he said, unlike most remakes of Nolan Insomnia, it's not a pale retread, but a re-examination of the material, like a new production of a good play. And some fun facts for you here. On the decision to cast Robin Williams as a villain, even though he's known for his comedic roles, Owen said, I think audiences will come away feeling like they have seen a new Robin Williams, seeing Robin Williams doing something they would never imagine that he would or could do. And he said, what I thought of Robin was he's an extraordinary guy to work with, and he really gave what I consider to be a flawless performance. I wound up watching the film hundreds of times as we cut it, and I never hit that point with the performance where you start to see the acting. Most performances at a point, bits start to peel off in a way, but with Robin's, he was very much in that character. Not that he's a very dark person to work with. He's very lively and friendly and amusing to work with. He really found something within himself. I think it's a very underrated bit of work on his part.
Wow.
That's also true. And then
impressive
I know, like, it's a review from Mr. Christopher Nolan. And it feels weird to say the late Robin Williams, because like of his stuff is so timeless and definitely, was a huge part of like a lot of us watching movies and mostly comedies, I think. But like he kind of will throw a curveball at you like this, but like, oh yeah, I can really act, guys. Like this is also what I can do. So that's also really cool.
He had just so much talent in him for any aspect of entertaining, whether or not it was comedy or drama or movies, TV. He did a great job just being like able to create a character that we believe in, whether or not it's believing that he killed somebody or believing that he was
he's Mrs. Doubtfire.
Amazing. Mrs. Doubtfire.
There we go. There you go, buddy.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
It says, Christopher Nolan told Time magazine that he had to deal with leading actors with highly different approaches. Al Pacino insisted on meticulous preparation, serious talks about character motivation, and lots of takes. Robin Williams preferred hardly any rehearsal, but many takes. And Hilary Swank wished to do just a few takes to stay completely focused. Nolan therefore let Pacino and Williams freely experiment and work things out together in order to get attuned to each other. And eventually they found the right balance with each other. That's kind of cool. That's about right, though.
To me, it sounds like it took fucking forever.
Oh, it was a 3-month shoot from April to June 2001. It doesn't seem like a movie that would take 3 months to shoot, but it did. As of 2020, this is the only directed by Christopher Nolan movie in which Nolan does not have an official writing credit, even though he did do work on the final draft of the screenplay. That's creepy.
I can see that.
Dormer's name comes from the French, Spanish, and Portuguese word dormir, which means to sleep. I guess that's obvious.
You say it, it makes sense. When I first heard it.
Robin Williams speaks his first line 47 minutes into the movie, and he doesn't appear on screen until 61 minutes in. His character, Walter Finch, does appear earlier in the film, but is not identifiable and is possibly played by a stand-in. And that's during the whole fog shootout. During the shooting of the film, there was an avalanche near the set. Footage of it shot by director of photography Wally Pfizer is included as an extra on the Blu-ray. Okay. I'll check that out.
The Blu-ray?
Have it on Blu-ray, yeah. Physical copy.
Nice.
Boom.
Nice.
Insomnia from 2002, Dunkirk from 2017, Tenet from 2020, and following from 1998 are the only movies directed by Christopher Nolan that are not listed in IMDb's top 250 as of 2021. His other 7 movies are among the best 250 movies ever made as voted by IMDb users.
Wow.
I'll take that.
If I was him, I'd take that.
Harrison Ford was considered for the role of Will Dormer. I can't. Oh yeah, actually, gruff Harrison Ford. I can see doing it, but Pacino's perfectly cast in it. As of 2019, this might be different. I have to look into it. This is Christopher Nolan's last R-rated film. All films he has directed since have been rated PG-13.
I don't know why this was R. It should have been PG-13.
It's not really that violent either. Like,
no,
there's cursing and stuff, I guess, but it's not. There wasn't a ton of it. Yeah. This is Christopher Nolan's.
I'm shocked it was R.
Yeah. Insomnia is Christopher Nolan's only modern film post 2000 not nominated for any major awards. Wow. Did not know that either. And
that's saying something though.
That is saying something. And by the way, this movie's not in the top.
He's made has been nominated
for some kind of award.
What?
And not to say,
dude,
like,
that is insane.
That is insane. And this movie is not in the top 250 on IMDb, but it still has a pretty solid, for his underrated work, 7.2 out of 10 on that site. So that's still
every movie he's made has had some sort of award been nominated for.
That's crazy.
That is that's got to be some record. That's got to be a record. I mean, Tarantino, baby. Tarantino.
Yeah, I wonder about Spielberg.
Spielberg?
Well, I don't know.
I mean,
yeah, he has some stuff that not. Yeah, you're right,
dude. Owen, I mean, it's the only movie that's not been awarded something. Holy fucking shit!
That's crazy.
Crazy.
Jonathan Demme, the late Jonathan Demme, who directed The Silence of the Lambs, was once considered to direct this. And here's a good one: Al Pacino suffers from chronic insomnia, so it's ideal casting for the cop who was unable to sleep.
He's like, I got you. I know how to act.
Some more explicit or dark details were changed from the original Norwegian film, such as the dead dog Dormer shoots in this film is alive in the original. Dormer does some reckless driving to scare the dead girl's friend. In the original, he grabs her between the legs. Dormer and the hotel clerk share their thoughts a lot in the film. In the original, they flirt a lot and he almost rapes her. The extremely downbeat ending in the original has also been changed.
So the thing that's the most fucked up is, like, that's probably more realistic.
I mean, American audiences would not okay
Americans
with that.
Are just like, I can't see that. They're like, it's too fucked up. That would definitely be an R rating. Like that would. Yeah.
And then if you thought they should go this way, according to the original script, Dormer was originally supposed to survive at the end and be helped away from the lake house by Ellie. This ending was filmed but cut as the film's conclusion was ultimately changed. Do you think the ending it has now is best, or should they have gone?
I'm glad he died. He needed to sleep.
He did need to sleep.
He needed some rest.
He needed some rest.
Eternal rest.
Eternal rest. All right, guys, we were at the question point of the show. By the way, I hope you it sounds like you enjoyed Insomnia, so I did, yeah. So, made up for my last thriller choice was like problematic, and this one is better than Mr. Brooks.
No. So final thoughts. This was a good movie, man. This is a good choice. For Nolan, obviously, just has some insanely well done cinematography. It's funny. I will say I tell if he didn't help with the script. I think the script is fantastic. Going back to the Writers Guild, I will say they did a great job. They did a great job. Pacino's performance of his delirium and unexpectedness, Robin Williams coming in with a dramatic role.
61 minutes in, shows
61 minutes in, he's just like,
what up?
I mean, don't watch the trailer. Don't watch the trailer for this because it's so early 2000s and it makes it look hilariously ridiculous. So just don't watch the trailer for this, but it is fantastic. And if you don't mind watching a funny action scene of two 60-year-olds running after each other for about, I don't know, 5 to 8 minutes, then check this out. It's fantastic.
Oh man, The psychological part of the movie is great. It's shot well. Maybe we should have done without like a scene between
a chase scene. We don't need a chase scene. A chase scene.
But it's interesting what you said about you can tell that Christopher Nolan, even though he didn't work on the final draft, you can tell when like something is not part of their like normal aesthetic. Really, like you could like with Jackie Brown, you could tell that Quentin Tarantino, that wasn't his original idea. It was based on the book compared to like his other stuff. You can tell when it's not like fully there. So I think that everything post this, like Nolan, it's been his like stamp approval. Like every movie he's made after Insomnia, you can kind of tell like the difference a little bit. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Still enjoyed it. I think it still holds up. You know, this I think around this period is when these thrillers were kind of about to die off a little bit. So this is kind of like the tail end of movies still doing well. I think this is like the same year as like Red Dragon as well. Also a really good thriller. But yeah, this is kind of like almost the end of the era for these kind of movies because the late 90s, early 2000s was when these movies like really hit, and then they kind of went away a little bit after this. Probably there was just too many of them, oversaturated the market a little bit. But
I picked Prisoners as my first movie, which is a psychological thriller about murder. So it's like I think that it continues to be a genre that is popular, but also is very hard to get right. It's really difficult to find the right dynamic of, do I believe the characters? Is this a realistic scenario? How unrealistic is it to be interesting? It doesn't necessarily just be like a murder. It's got to be something good, which is why the dynamic between and like the leverage conversation between Robin Williams and Pacino is there, and that's why this movie is good, because the story's actually got some levity to it rather than having just like, oh, someone's dead, someone's trying to find the killer, sick, let's go after him.
There's some there's almost like there's a few different layers going on at once. It's not just like a cop going after a serial killer. There's like a lot of different stories going on within the main story that kind of makes it interesting. And like you said, you get something like Prisoners like years later. I think it just comes down to like good writing and good acting and good directing, and then a movie like that can't really take off. But yeah, this was one of the good ones, and I have your first question already, because if we're gonna deep dive movies, you get to deep dive with us.
Guys, that's the point.
From reviews by JT on Twitter, Owen, have you ever walked out of a movie because it was so bad? I'm assuming that's what that means.
Wow. I can truthfully say, by the book, I have never walked out of a movie. I will
just go through it.
I will sit through it, and also maybe a little pat on the back for myself. I'm not going to buy a ticket for something that I don't think I'm not going to like. I'd rather go see something that even if I'm going to go pay some money for it, like I know I'm at least going to sit through it. I'm not going to necessarily take a chance that I might want to walk out. So I'd rather see something that no matter what, I'm going to sit through it.
Yep. I know this wasn't my question, but I've never done it either. And I've sat through some hot garbage. So it's I mean, once you're there, I feel like you're there.
And you're welcome, by the way. To all the directors out there, you're welcome.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad saying that. Say it because there's always that hope. That little hope. Like, you'll get better.
There's giving it a chance.
A
chance.
And at this time, I've already invested the time. I've already been there like 30, 45 minutes. Like, why am I going to leave now? I might as well get through it. So, I mean, I've never done that either.
I already hate my life. I might as well keep going.
Like, yeah, you know how much, I mean, I don't have to pay for movies anymore. But back when I had to pay for movies, expensive. And I mean, I guess you can like get your money back. I don't know how that works if you don't like something midway through.
I mean, I used to work at a movie theater. If someone came up to me at the end of the movie, they had just sat through all of it and said, I want my money back, it was terrible, I'd say, you sat through all of it, so you paid for it. If you left 20 minutes in, here's your money. But you don't get to get your money back after watching the entire thing. There's absolutely no way.
That's true. All right. And James on Twitter, this isn't so much a question, more of a suggestion for me. I know Owen's younger, so you should take this opportunity to show him more movies that we grew up with in the 90s as a deep dive. I would be really interested to see his take on some of the films that we grew up with in our generation. That actually is it. I mean, thank you. That's awesome. That's interesting because I've thought about that too. Like something that's very much like, oh, I grew up with this in like the 90s. I feel like you're like Jackson in the way though, where like that won't matter because he actually said that his friends got what the year was. I think it's or 2000. They're like, oh no, they won't watch it. But I don't know how you feel about movies from that particular era, but maybe I'll pick one and see if
it depends. I mean,
sell you on it.
I'll say that there are some certain movies that it just feels very dated. Like you can just tell.
Yeah.
They're definitely it's a different way to see a movie. Just based on like kind of like the narrative now. So like seeing something like that, it's just like it just feels different, very culturally different. Wondering why it was popular, what the significance of it was. So that's a very different dynamic. But it really depends on what the movie is. So like we always say, you can pick whatever movie you want. So
that's true. It could be from like 1975. You're like, all right, cool.
It doesn't matter. I could pick some Charlie Chaplin bullshit, and guess what? You'd have to watch it, and
I'd have to watch it. God, make me watch a silent film. Yeah. I mean, you just watch Rocky, so like, it's not like you're opposed to like watching older movies.
Well, I didn't tell you if I like it or not.
Oh, well, ooh. Never mind.
Dude, the scene where he's like hitting on the girl in the apartment is creepy as fuck. His advances towards this girl are disturbing.
Do you remember that?
They're disturbing.
Well, we'll find out later on another how much he did not like Rocky. Oh God, I wish you guys could see his face right now. He's like, he's just about to make every cinephile so upset. All right, that's fair though. I mean, I like movies from the time I wasn't born. Like, I love movies from the 70s and early 80s, and I mean, I might take that. I'd be like, yo, this movie came out in 97. It was great when I was like young, and you're gonna love it, and we'll see how it goes.
We'll see, man.
We'll see. All right,
that's the whole point. That's a great question, by the way.
Yeah, that is a good suggestion because I've noticed, and this is not on purpose, that we haven't really gone out. The earliest film was one you chose, and it was Dogma from '99. We've in like the 2000s, 2010s, like with every pick that we've had.
It's a good year. That's a good decade for a movie.
I think so. And like even with '99, there is an argument by a lot of people that says that 1999 is one of the best years for movies. You got like The Matrix, you got Fight Club, you got a bunch of classics in 1999. It's not on purpose, guys. It's just a matter of like, there was a lot of good stuff coming out around this time. No, I'm not trying to like.
That was my decade when I fell in love with movies.
So yeah, no hate at all. I mean, we both haven't ventured out too far from that period, so I think it works. Whatever, it's fine. For both of us, from @ReelLover REEL, clarify. As you are approaching 100 episodes on your main show and the spinoff is doing so well, what has been the most rewarding part about doing the podcast now? You want to go first?
Yeah, I'll say is that the most rewarding part is just the ability to talk about movies and do it with one of my best friends and do it for an extended period of time where you guys actually think that we might have something to contribute. And you as listeners enjoy listening to our points because and that's one of the best things is hearing the feedback from you guys and making sure that we're just continuing to do the stuff that you guys like to hear, because this is this is something that we would do on the side and talk about this without you listening. So it would be great it's just great to see that and hear that you guys are responding to it. So thank you for listening, and thanks for just like, it just feels good to be able to talk about a movie and hot topics. I mean, today we talked about hot topics too. So this is the whole point of the podcast that Gaius and I created. So love to do it, and we love to create stuff for you guys, and that is the most rewarding part as we continue to just do what we love and see that it's working.
I will just second that. I think you guys probably said it the best. I'll add to it, I would have meet a lot of cool people doing it, like who have guested on the show, and I probably would have never met them otherwise. So that part has been really cool too. Everyone's just very supportive of each other's shows, and that part is really fun. It's also fun to do. It's positive to do. I look forward to doing it. And, I can go back to like my buddy David I went to middle school with. He listens to the show. And when we were in middle school, we wanted to write movies together, and we thought we were writing like the greatest things ever when we were that young. Of course we weren't. But like it was cool working on stuff with like your friends.
Yeah.
And even that young, you were like, yeah, I want to like let's make a movie together and like let's see if we can get our friends to be in it. And, like we want to be like little junior filmmakers and stuff like that. And like it's cool now because I think a lot of people want to collaborate on things with their good friends and like have it be something that's fun to do. And I think that's the best thing about it so far is that like a really rewarding thing that I get to do with one of my close friends, and it's a really fun thing that we enjoy doing. I think we both sometimes talk to each other, and it's like I still can't believe people about what we have to say. It still like surprises me.
Man, we have the most important stuff to say.
Apparently,
paramount. Paramount. Listen to our content.
Yeah. But no, that's the rewarding part. You get to do it with like one of your good friends, and it's like fun time. And I've said it to him offline. It feels like a brand new show, really. Like both of them. Like it doesn't feel it doesn't feel like I started over, but it definitely feels a bit more refreshing. It doesn't feel like we're approaching 100. I think there's like this rejuvenation kind of happened in the last few months that like made the experience new all over again. That's been really exciting. Well,
100% agree.
So yeah, like it's got to the point where like we're having fun, and now we have to have these side conversations like, well, this is fun, but like see something here. Like let's keep that going.
Let's build on it. Yeah,
let's build on that.
Exactly.
And also taking time doing it. Like it's not like, hey, like we don't have to rush anything. Like we're still enjoy doing it. Like let's just do it right. And I think that is been rewarding too. And I'll throw Jackson in the mix too. We got to know him, and he's been like a huge part of part of the show too. Like he's
the killer.
Really good. So yeah. No, we're just having a good time, and thank you for listening to us just nerd out and talk about movies. Because this would be what we do, like with each other, out the benefit of you guys listening to us. Maybe not.
I wish we could have recorded when we were watching. I wish we could have recorded when we watched 21 together, because that was like a perfect description of just how we talk just on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Like it's like silence, and we're watching the scene, and then something will happen, and I'll burst out laughing, and I'm like, that was so fucking ridiculous. Like, did you see that?
Like,
we'll just kind of like go from that.
Definitely saw it. Yeah. But yeah, man. Yeah, another one finished. Episode 10.
Dude, that's number 10. That's a big one.
That's a big one. Thank you guys for listening. I'm gonna let my buddy here sign us on out. And just so you know, of course, week after next, it will finally be Owen's pick. Episode 11. We'll see what he comes up with, and we will remember to put up on social media his first 5, my first 5, to see what you guys think of our initial picks for our deep dive. Just a friendly competition amongst friends to see like who chose the better movies. All good movies, but yeah.
The next pick is going to be a very special day. We're going to be recording on my birthday, or next week. It is going to be a very special episode. So stay tuned for that one. But just want to say, guys, thank you so much for listening to Back to the Blockbuster Events Dives with Owen and Gaius. And doing Insomnia today. It's just been a great chance for us to catch up, listen to some movies, and just have a great discussion for you guys. You can listen to us anywhere. You can find your podcasts. Apple Music, Spotify. My new go-to is Good Pods. That's where we like to listen to it. And they've been a great supporter of us. Playlist has been our biggest supporter. So thank you to Playlist for being a great contributor, letting us make our own content. And we'll be back in a couple weeks. Also listen to us anytime you would like every week with the regular show, into pop culture news. And we will be back soon with my pick.
On your birthday. On my birthday.
A very special day.
All right, guys. Peace out.